Hey, monster. Me?
Old Mage Guy is now live, streaming politics, morning news with OMG.
Hello, everyone. I'm a little bit late today. Had stuff coming up. I still gotta make my coffee. So just got coffee grounds. Dad stopped by, dropped off some coffee and some cigarettes. So I'm gonna get some caffeine in me, and we will get rolling. Yeah, I'm pretty sure my kitty's in. Hang on, is it going to stop me? It's coffee. Shit-facing plastic. Meow. What, baby? What's on screen? So, again, my apologies. Running a little bit late today. Still get my coffee going. But I can hear. Matter of fact, excuse me.
It's all right. That's interesting.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Slotkin. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak tonight. It's late, so I promise to be a lot.
Hush. Already 22 hours. Really? There's not been.
Elon Musk claims to have found billions of dollars of government fraud, waste, and abuse. But on closer inspection, almost all of his claims turned out to be products of Elon's own ignorance. Now, everyone on the planet is in favor of increased governmental efficiency. But the problem is that fraud, waste, and abuse are harder to find than you might think. So much so that there are senior government officials called inspectors general who run entire teams of independent watchdogs with public accountability. Unfortunately, Donald Trump fired most of them in one of his first acts in his second term. And it's particularly important to have federal employees dig into claims of fraud because generally you can't find it by simply looking at a spreadsheet.
Yes.
So when Elon Musk and his Doge Bros claimed that they found billions of dollars of fraud by looking at a spreadsheet of payments, we were skeptical. And our skepticism paid off because it turns out that first order approximation they didn't find any fraud. Now, Musk and Trump may disagree with the federal spending priorities set by Congress, but the spending set by Congress is the law. So categorically, if spending certain funds is required by congressional appropriation, it can't be fraud, but that hasn't stopped Musk and Doge from doubling down on their wild claims. So it turns out they did find fraud. Maybe the real fraud was the fraud they made up along the way. Chaos lawyer Liz Dye explains.
Thanks, Devin. After the election, Donald Trump announced the creation of the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies. At the time, he promised that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy would provide advice and guidance from outside of the government and partner with the White House Office of Management and Budget to drive large-scale structural reform and create an entrepreneurial approach to government never seen before. But it was not meant to be. First, Ramaswamy was sent packing off to Ohio, and then, within hours of being sworn in on January 20th, Trump signed an executive order renaming the Department of Digital Services the Department of Government Efficiency. Essentially, he skin-suited DOGE into an existing agency like some kind of alien body snatcher. The Department of Digital Services was originally tasked with improving user experience on government websites, and that first executive order sort of pretended that there was an overlap between the missions. It said that DOGE would be responsible for modernizing federal technology and software to maximize governmental efficiency and productivity, although it did hint at what was to come by referring to a team of DOGE dudes, which was to be dispatched to each government agency and given access to all non-classified databases. What followed was nothing less than a wholesale takeover of the government by Elon Musk and his Doge Bros as they colonized one federal agency after another and either shut them down or radically downsized them by firing tens of thousands of government employees. In February, the president dropped all pretense that Doge was about modernization. In a second executive order, he mandated that 4 federal workers be fired for every 1 new hire, and he gave the DOGE liaison to each federal agency the power to veto all hiring decisions. Since then, the Doge Bros have slashed through the government while the agency's Twitter account posts nonstop about all the woke contracts it's canceling. It is not legal for the president or his billionaire buddy to arbitrarily cancel contracts and congressionally allocated spending, but that's the subject for another video.
I got cheaper from CD keys.
Today, we're going to talk about math. Specifically, how believing everything you see on the internet makes you bad at it. On January 28th, in her first appearance at the podium, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt claimed that DOGE had discovered that the government was spending $50 million to buy condoms from Gaza.
DOGE and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money.
Musk called it the tip of the iceberg and said, my guess is that a lot of that money ended up in the pockets of Hamas, not actually condoms. That story was utter nonsense.
Yeah.
The entire population of Gaza before the latest war was only 2 million people. As multiple news organizations have pointed out, USAID, the government's vehicle for distributing humanitarian assistance, spent $0 on condoms in the entire Middle East in 2024, with only about $7 million for condoms worldwide. And we have to show you those articles instead of the original source material because DOGE yanked down USAID's website, including the tables that showed what the agency spent in prior years. But as Jeremy Knindick, the president of Refugees International and a former official at USAID, noted on Twitter, what's going on here is not a billion condoms for Gaza. What's going on is that the bros at DOGE can't read government spreadsheets. He called it the kind of basic mistake you make when you fire the workforce of the Global Health Bureau and pushed out much of the senior leadership. Pressed for evidence of the $50 million claim, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce tweeted that the across-the-board pause in foreign assistance, quote, allowed the State Department to prevent unjustified and non-emergency spending, such as condoms, prevented $102 million in unjustified funding to a contractor in Gaza, including money for contraception. There was, again, no evidence for this claim. And, as Knindick pointed out, it would be entirely appropriate for the U.S. government to purchase condoms and other birth control as part of its humanitarian funding. President Trump then doubled the figure to $100 million.
Yep.
Think of it, $100 million on condoms to Hamas.
Some media outlets have suggested that the Doge Bros got confused between the Gaza Strip, which is home to billions of Palestinians, and Gaza Province in Mozambique. As the Washington Post points out, the Elizabeth Glaser Pediatric AIDS Foundation received $83 billion from the Department of Health and Human Services Department for HIV/AIDS Prevention in Gaza Province, although none of that went to buy condoms. That did not stop Fox News' Jesse Waters from insisting on air that the U.S. government was paying for condom bombs.
They make condom bombs. Hamas inflates the condoms, straps on an explosive, and floats them into Israel.
Oh, bullshit.
Technology. Looks like a Hamas birthday party. So we pay for the Hamas condom bombs and Israel's Iron Dome.
None of that was remotely true. As far as we can tell, it's just completely made up. But here's Musk brushing off the criticism in the Oval Office.
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be correct. So nobody's going to bounce. We will make mistakes. We'll act quickly to correct it.
Again, we did not spend $50 million on condoms, and if we had, it wouldn't be appropriate or legal for some unelected billionaire to simply cancel that allocation out based on his own sense that it's a bad idea. But that was not the only incidence of Musk math leading to bizarre and often outright false claims about the federal budget.
Now, sorry to interrupt, but if you're going to accuse the government of fraud, you'll want a good lawyer. If you want a great lawyer, my law firm, the Eagle Team, can help. If you've gotten in a car crash, suffered a data breach, especially if you've gotten on this data breach letter saying your information might have been leaked, or dealing with a workers' comp or social security issue, we can represent you or help find you the right attorney. It's so important to talk to a lawyer right away so you can maximize your recovery. And by the way, we don't get paid unless you do, so there's nothing up front. So just click on the link in the description and call the phone number on screen for a free consultation with my team. Because you don't just need a legal team, you need the Eagle Team.
During that gonzo Oval Office press conference, Musk claimed to have found billions of dollars of Social Security fraud. The allegation that there were thousands of fake 150-year-old people collecting Social Security checks rocketed through the MAGA ecosystem. Here's the president's son, Don Jr., tweeting, "OMG, it's so bad what's been happening to our country and your money." But people who actually understand code immediately spotted the error. The tip-off is that Musk thinks all those fake Social Security accounts are for people who are 150 years old, i.e. born in 1875. See, a lot of the data that Musk's whiz-kid coders have been rifling through was written in the last century. There are a lot of reasons for this, but chief among them is money, because it's expensive to modernize enormous data systems, particularly when, like Social Security, they absolutely, positively cannot break down or leak. And Congress is never interested in appropriating millions of dollars to revitalize data processing systems, so it always gets pushed off to the next year, which means that the management protocols for U.S. government financial data are very old and very fragile. That's part of why people were freaking out about the Doge dudes getting into Treasury's payment processing system, because it would be very easy to break it by accident, and breaking it would be catastrophic because it would grind the entire government payment system to a halt. Anyway, in 1988, long before most of the Doge programmers were even born, the International Organization for Standardization tried to regularize the notation for dates. Take, as an example, this number.
Who said you could ask me out? Do you even have an ability?
What? Example, this number. Americans read that as February 10th. For more or less everyone else, it's October 2nd. Now, you guys can argue in the comments about who's right here, but for the purposes of international banking transactions, it matters that everyone is on the same page. So in 1988, we all agreed that the international standard would be an 8-digit number comprising the year, month, and day. That standard was called ISO 8601, and under it, February 10th, 2025 is rendered as 20250210 the world over. No more confusion. But for reasons you know having to do with the Gregorian calendar, under ISO 8601, we all agreed to treat May 20th, 1875 as the year zero. That's the date when the Treaty of Metro was signed at the first International Convention to establish the International Bureau of Weights and Measures in Paris, and I guess that seemed like as good a date as any. But I'm sure we all see where this is going, because the government's payment processing systems at the Department of Treasury's Bureau of Fiscal Services runs on a 65-year-old computer programming language called COBOL, and COBOL utilizes the ISO 8601 standard, meaning that if there's nothing...
Oh, they're running on Cobalt. No wonder they're saying their shit's old. Because it's fucking old! God damn!
Thing in the birthday field, it will render as the earliest date acknowledged by the system 187505020. So, if anyone of any age has a missing birthday, the system will show her as born on May 20th, 1875. And a person who doesn't know what he's looking at is going to see that showing a Social Security recipient who's 150 years old, which is very funny if you're a computer programmer, but not so funny if you're watching your government be disassembled by a deranged billionaire. But Musk was not done. On February 16th, he discovered that 83% of Social Security recipients were fraudulent, tweeting, "Maybe Twilight is real and there are a lot of vampires collecting Social Security." Trump immediately parroted the claim that there were millions of fraudulent Social Security recipients.
From 200 to 209 years old, 879 people.
Yeah.
From 210 years old, I haven't met any of them. And if I did, I would bless them. I would worship the ground they walk on.
I have no idea where Musk got that chart. He did not say. But there are roughly 71 million Social Security recipients in the United States and roughly 60 million Americans over the age of 65, almost all of whom are Social Security eligible, which doesn't even take into account all the widows, orphans, and disabled people who collect Social Security benefits. There just are not enough people for there to be tens of millions of fraudulent recipients. That's not a thing. In another recent episode, Musk tweeted, "The Doge team just discovered that FEMA sent $59 million last week to luxury hotels in New York City to house illegal migrants. Sending this money violated the law and is in gross insubordination to the president's executive order. That money is meant for American disaster relief and instead is being spent on high-end hotels for illegals." Literally none of that was true. In fact, the Federal Emergency Management Agency sent almost $81 million to the city of New York on February 6th as part of its obligation under the law to support communities hosting large numbers of asylum seekers and migrants released from federal custody. The city used $19 million to pay itself back for money already spent to house migrants in accordance with the federal grant. Those immigrants are being housed in multiple locations, including the Roosevelt Hotel, a once famous but now decidedly dilapidated building in Midtown that the city uses as a migrant shelter and central processing hub.
It was just over a year ago when the Roosevelt Hotel became New York City's intake center for newly arriving migrants.
The city does not put migrants up in luxury hotels. In fact, is paying an average of $156 a night per room, a decidedly non-luxury rate for New York City. Contrary to what Musk said, that money was not supposed to be spent on disaster relief. It was part of a $650 million congressional allocation to FEMA's Shelter and Service Program. In short, the money was being used exactly as Congress directed in its 2023 and 2024 budget bills. And lest we forget, budget bills are laws. The president cannot unilaterally suspend them, and neither can Elon Musk. Spend them, and neither can Elon Musk. Nevertheless, Musk tweeted that a clawback demand will be made today to recoup those funds, and Cameron Hamilton, the acting administrator of FEMA, raced to make it happen. He tweeted, "I want to thank the Doge team for making me aware of this. Effective yesterday, those payments have all been suspended from FEMA. Personnel will be held accountable. Congress should have never passed bills in 2023 and 2024 asking FEMA to do this work. This stops now. It is not normal for a public official to say, yes, these are laws passed by Congress instructing me to do a thing, but guess what? I'm not going to do it," which is why Hamilton said something different in court. See, a federal judge in Rhode Island already barred the government from cutting any grants or contracts outside the regular agency review process. And after Musk and Hamilton announced their intent to do just that, the Justice Department filed an emergency motion asking the court to allow it to cut funds to New York City. In his declaration to the court, Hamilton did not say that he was clawing back the grant money because New York was using disaster relief to put migrants up in luxury hotels. Instead, he claimed that, according to media reports, the vicious Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua has taken over the hotel and is using it as a recruiting center and base of operations to plan a variety of crimes. That claim was sourced to a New York Post article derived mainly from Spanish-language TikToks. Hamilton made no claim to have investigated those rumors. He did not refer to any violation by the city of New York, which would have invalidated the grant, and he did not tell the court that he engaged in the months-long process set out in federal regulations to recoup improperly used grant funds. Instead, he said he paused funding quickly in this matter to protect that funding.
Let me pick it up, you monster!
Used for the illegal activity described. But the judge refused to sign the government's permission slip. He said basically, if what you're doing is legal, then you don't need my permission, and if it's not legal, I can't give it to you. And of course, it wasn't legal. Federal regulations require an audit, 60 days notice, an appeal mechanism, and allowing the grant recipient to make repayment arrangements. Here, the government just reversed an $80 million payment, most of which had nothing to do with the Roosevelt Hotel, and stole the money. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem fired the civil servant.
It's the Roosevelt? It's been known for some time that the Roosevelt's been fucking decommissioned. Yeah, it's been known for some time that the Roosevelt wasn't an actual hotel anymore. What the fuck? I'm in Oregon and knew the Roosevelt was fucking shut down as a hotel. Other side of the fucking country. And all I have access to is internet. The hell?
Who put the transaction through as they were required to do by law, calling them...
Scratch out the one better. It was a Fox News segment when it got closed down. And they even said the plans were to change it into a homeless shelter.
FEMA deep state activists and promised that there will not be a single penny spent that goes against the interest and safety of the American people. But again, the American people spoke when they elected their representatives to Congress, which sets the budget. That's how our constitutional system goes. And the fact that Elon Musk believes crazy things, either because he sees them on the internet or because the Doge Jews don't know what they're looking at, does not change the law. Elon Musk and his Doge bros put out so many fake stories it can be hard to keep track of them all. He and his millions of followers spent several news cycles discovering that media outlets were secretly funded by agencies like USAID. I think the theory here is that federal agencies which make policy decisions and have to liaise with Congress should not pay for subscriptions to the New York Times and the Washington Post and Politico Pro, which are essential reading for everyone in D.C. I guess the less information, the better.
Only 6.8% of the world owns crypto today.
Loki, chill out.
Reading for everyone in D.C. I guess the less information, the better. On February 12th, Reuters published a story entitled Musk's Doge Cuts Based More on Political Ideology Than Real Cost Savings So Far. The story noted correctly that Musk was going after programs that conservatives dislike, such as public television and programs that support diversity. But those represent a minuscule fraction of the federal budget and will not get close to the $2 trillion in spending cuts Musk has promised to find. After Director Ron Howard posted the Reuters piece, Musk replied, I wonder how much money Reuters is getting from the government. Let's find out. A crypto bro named Mario Nawfal raced to produce the desired data, which wasn't difficult since you and I and everyone else can go to usaspending.gov and plug in any recipient we like. Nawfal pointed to a contract from 2018 when Trump was still president for, quote, active social engineering defense and large-scale social deception. He said, Doge investigations reveal mysterious Defense Department payments to Reuters for large-scale social deception project between 2018 and 2022. While DARPA claims it was for cyber defense, questions swirl about why a news agency received millions for social engineering. In fact, questions did not swirl, or at least not until Nawfal started swirling them. Because you too can click through and see the November 2017 proposal soliciting innovative research proposals in the area of automated defense against social engineering attacks, which Nawfal must have done himself since he knew that the proposal originated from DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. But that did not matter to Musk, who immediately tweeted, Reuters was paid millions of dollars by the U.S. government for large-scale social deception. That is literally what it says on the purchase order. They're a total scam. And it didn't matter to the president either. The reality is that Thomson Reuters is a huge company with a news division that is totally separate from its research division, and Doge didn't discover this contract. It was on a public website, and some internet rando tweeted it at Musk along with a totally misleading suggestion, which Musk and Trump were both delighted to treat as fact. Anyway, thanks to this hard-hitting investigation, the Securities and Exchange Commission has now canceled its subscription to Westlaw, the legal research database relied on by every lawyer in America, because it happens to be owned by Reuters. In reality, though, The Reuters article that made Musk mad in the first place was dead right. The things that Doge is cutting are a minuscule fraction of the federal budget. In that Oval Office press conference on February 11th, Trump crowed that Doge had found tens of billions of dollars of waste, fraud, and abuse to cut, mostly by perusing USAspending.gov, apparently. But the Washington Post ran the numbers. And even if you take Doge at its word, their math does not add up. Because $1 trillion is a really big number. And if you're promising $500 billion worth of savings from cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, a few $1 million here or there will not cut it. For instance, Doge says pennies cost more than 3 cents to mint, so the government can save $179 million a year by eliminating the penny. Which might be true, although I'd note that getting rid of pennies means we're going to need a lot more nickels, which cost 14 cents a piece to make. And like Reuters said, most of the Doge cuts so far have been to projects to promote diversity, equity, inclusion, and access, which might add up to a few $1 billion across the entire federal government, but is relatively speaking a drop in the bucket. Even the purported $881 million in cuts to the Department of Education do not get anywhere near that $500 billion Trump promised. You can eke out $1 million by getting rid of the non-binary gender marker X on all government documents and next an exhibit on Dr. Anthony Fauci at the Museum of National Institutes of Health and save $168,000. That's more of a middle finger to people you don't like than actual budget policy.
Yeah.
The Washington Post tallied the Doge cuts through February 12th and came up with a total of $6 billion, of which judges have already blocked $4 billion in cuts to medical and scientific research. That is not $500 billion. It is not even tens of billions of dollars, as Musk and Trump promised. And even if Trump and Musk get their way and fire vast swaths of the federal workforce, it's not going to get them where they say they want to go. Because, as the Brookings Institution points out, 60% of the federal workforce is in the Department of Defense, Veterans Affairs, and the Department of Homeland Security. Trump promised not to cut any staff at those departments, although he's already fired 1,000 people at the VA, so who knows? He also fired and had to rehire more than 300 workers who managed the National Nuclear Stockpile. Oops. But if you leave aside those three agencies, the payroll for the entire rest of the federal government is just $108 billion. So you could cut 1 in 3 federal workers, and it would still only save you $35 billion. A recent investigation by the New York Times of a reported $8 billion contract canceled by Doge revealed that the real number was just $8 billion. The Times notes that after the article was published, Doge removed the screenshot that showed the mismatch, but continued to claim $8 billion in savings. It added a link to the original incorrect version of the listing, showing an $8 billion value. It later updated the link to reflect the correct number, but failed to subtract the $7,992 million from the supposed $55 billion tally of the cuts it claims to have made so far. And by the by, the Times says that they didn't find this error by going through the whole list. They just picked the biggest number and investigated that one first. But the Doge defenders have a good answer for that, and it's, what are you trying to hide? You must be mad because we found all this corruption.
When they want to audit USAID, who is spending $100 million to send condoms to Gaza, let alone running shrimp on treadmill and all the other ridiculous things. Like, the Democrats go crazy. Let them do this, Sean.
Reasonable people can argue about small government versus big government and the appropriate use of tax dollars. That's not the issue here. Leave aside the dubious legality of almost everything Doge has done, violating everything from service protection to the appropriations clause to the Empowerment Control Act. That's going to be for judges to sort out. The issue is that none of the numbers these guys are throwing around will get anywhere near $500 billion or $2 trillion or whatever made-up figure they throw out tomorrow. That math just ain't mathing. Although, if your goal is to hollow out the federal government and make sure that it can never deliver services that Americans have come to rely on, this plan ought to do it.
Yeah.
I got it cheaper from CD keys.
Well, that was it? That's how it ended? Just an abrupt ending like that? Fuck. That's not normal. Okay. Okay.
Joe Rogan interviewed Elon Musk, and throughout this whole interview, I found myself thinking, my goodness, this is the guy who's been handed the keys to the government. This guy. Really?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And we'll go through some clips. We'll get to some more substantive stuff, the Social Security foreshadowing, or I should say the dismantling of Social Security foreshadowing that Elon Musk did, disastrous both in the lives of people, but also politically for the Republican Party. But starting with something more lighthearted, Elon Musk, again, just given the most consequential things that he's handling, this all just doesn't strike me well, which is him finding it hilarious that he can get AI to say potty words.
I did watch this one. Short.
Hi, everyone. I'm Melissa Slotkin. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak tonight.
Oh,
Okay, I'm going to need every single politician to bring the energy that Representative Jim Himes just brought about Ukraine on the Midas Touch podcast. If you like this clip, remember to listen to the full interview on Apple or on Spotify. Zelensky is watching 70,000 dead Ukrainians every single day. Missiles are slamming into hospitals. Children are being killed on their way to school. This is what he's seeing. And he comes to the Oval Office and a reporter asks him why he's not wearing a suit. And J.D. Vance said, you don't say thank you. Think about it. Look, Tulsi has this theory that Zelensky was a little aggressive. He presided over a brutal invasion, 70,000 dead every single time.
For real though.
It's the midweek edition of Legal AF, your favorite law and politics podcast. Wednesdays with Karen Freeman, Nick Nifolo, and Michael Popok. Oh, where do we start? I guess we'll start with whatever they called that 140-minute long fake State of the Union address last night. But more particularly, we'll focus on the intersection of law and politics, like when Donald Trump blew the doors off of most of the cases involving Doge. There's about a dozen of them, because he finally said what everybody knows, that Elon Musk runs Doge. Duh. But the Department of Justice has been taking counter positions on that until now. And then we got that weird moment when Donald Trump entered the arena, entered the chambers, and did like a fist bump, little belly pat of Chief Justice Roberts, who looked very uncomfortable, talking about things that were said there. And Amy Coney Barrett, who's getting like flamed, roasted by MAGA, because they don't like the fact that she like turned away and didn't look at him and didn't want to participate in this charade. From off of that, we'll go right into the United States Supreme Court. So we got two rulings back to back. One today in a 5-4 decision. The majority of the Supreme Court, with Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett in the majority, basically said that the $2 billion in humanitarian aid needs to be sent out. Upholding a order of Judge Ali in the District of Columbia, a shocking blow to the Trump administration, with a scathing dissent by who else? Sam Alito, writing on behalf of Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Thomas, in which he said he was stunned by the majority's decision. I was stunned by the dissent. We'll cover it with my colleague Karen Freeman Nifolo. And then, they give with one hand, they take away with another. We got a new ruling day before yesterday by the United States Supreme Court. They basically said it's okay to have raw sewage pouring into your water supply, and gutting many, many aspects that we have come to hold dear and keep us healthy and safe with our Clean Water Act. We'll talk about why, as one satirical X account referred to it, why do we have to drink poop water? Why is the Supreme Court okay with that? I bet you all their water's filtered, by the way. So we got that kind of back-to-back bookends of the United States Supreme Court. As Donald Trump starts to try sort of to walk back some of his most extreme positions about firing certain workers, while at the same time we got two back-to-back rulings, one by Judge Amy Berman Jackson, the other by Judge Rudy Contreras in the District of Columbia, on two sides of the same coin about our civil service program. One side being the Office of Special Counsel, headed by Hampton Dellinger, a Biden appointee. The other, Kathy Harris, the head of the Merit Protection Service Board, who is also a Biden appointee. Oh, God, when you fire the very watchdogs that are responsible for stopping illegal firings of federal workers in retaliation for partisan reasons, and you fire them, you might end up in court. You might get a permanent injunction issued against you. And we're going to talk about how those cases were played out. What was the basis of those cases? What are Karen's favorite precedents? Humphrey's executor. We're going to talk about it. I think I love that case, so you talk about it. And the United States Supreme Court. And I think that's going to be our show. Well, good night, everybody. Bye, Karen. How you doing?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Tell me about what's going on in your life with all your lovely children and your lovely husband and all that fun stuff we never really get to dive into.
Oh yeah, well, my husband, he's been on trial and out of town, so I barely see him these days. But hopefully, I'll see him again soon, and everyone's good. Thank you for asking. How about you? How are things? I see you in short sleeve. Yeah.
My wife and I moved south with our baby daughter. Everybody's thriving. And appreciate you asking. This is a new podcast studio for media enterprises, or whatever we're calling it.
Is that a dartboard behind you?
Yeah, because that's funny. I shifted my computer on camera before, so I have to just make a confession. I was a dart hustler in college. I played on the Metropolitan Dart League at NYU, which was not made up of college students. It was made up of semi-alcoholic guys in Irish pubs all around Manhattan.
That's darts. This is like breaking news. This is like I bet you never discussed this in one of the heat towns or anything else. This is a big deal. Like people are learning. You are calling it dart what?
It was the Metro. It still exists. It's the Metropolitan Dart League, like a bowling league. We went from Irish pub to Irish pub on Tuesday nights. I even had a fake name. There's a group of people in New York. Thank you. There's a group of people in New York that know me not by Mike or Popok. They know me by Vic. V-I-C. That was my dart
Yes.
name. Why do you have a dart name? Because there were so many Mikes and Michaels.
Uh-huh.
I used to sign up on the dart on the list to be next. They would yell out Mike in an Irish pub. Do you know how many people turned their head?
Many.
So I came up with Vic, which was an inside joke. It was a friend of mine from college, and I was Vic. So to this day, I will run into somebody from that era. I'll put my hand out and go, Michael or Mike. And they'll go, no, that's not your name. I'll go, Vic? They'll go, yeah, Vic. You're Vic.
And so wait, what is it called? A dart shark?
No, I don't know. No, he's saying I was a dart shark. No, it's not. While we played for somebody, it was like $1. We were in college. I barely could afford the falafel stand around the corner from the college. I was poor.
That's an amazing little story. I always, exactly. Salty. I always knew you were a hustler.
So when I'm blowing off steam before between videos, I have this regulation, and I have the exact same spot close to stand, and I just throw darts, to kind of. So if you ever hear me in a phone conversation here, that's what's going.
Yeah, you're gonna have to show off your skills one time.
Oh, not so much. Darts. All right. Well, we bored our audience long enough. Let's turn to our first topic. And everybody that wanted to see the joint address to Congress that Donald Trump has seen it, or they've seen the Biden versions of it, but let's try to turn it right to the things that matter in the courts of law. Like, what did you make of Donald Trump couldn't help himself, and I'm sure his Department of Justice was slapping their collective forehead.
It's food.
But he had Elon Musk stand up, and say, there he is, the head of Doge, given the conflicting positions that have been taken in the 12 different cases, and the judge is getting really pissed off and on the verge of various contempts about What is Doge? Who is Doge? Who runs Doge? Who's the administrator of Doge? And the press secretary,
Yeah,
just
all right, cool.
to
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
saying, "You hounds! Why do you keep asking me? Who told you it's this 53-year-old woman in Tennessee that's in Mexico right now on vacation? She's the head of Doge. Elon, don't look at Elon Musk." And now we know but we've always known he's running the Office of Personnel Management. He's running everything. He's stopping payments. He's firing people. What did you make of it? And what did you make of what's happening next in the courtrooms based on that revelation, that confession?
Yeah, I mean, look, last night's whatever you want to call it, speech, rally, whatever it is, was just stunning to watch. Frankly, I actually watched it in reverse. I watched the response by Senator Slotkin first, and just because timing-wise, I wasn't available at the time that the speech was given. And boy, she impressive! What an incredible background she has too. That she was in the CIA, that she's a public servant, that she's from Michigan, and she's from a place where both she as a Democrat won and Trump won as a Republican. Her perspective was great. Her delivery was great, and frankly, she just looks like future of the Democratic Party. But in addition to her as being impressive, I really liked what she had to say. It was common sense. It made sense, and I couldn't wait to then see what Trump said, just to kind of juxtapose it. And that's like a clown show, and it would be funny, except it's sad because it's obviously messing with our entire country, and it's just really unbelievable how much the rule of law no longer matters, the truth no longer matters, and it was, and how he used.
Dublin hears birds chirping. And him instantly there, looking up at the vent, stopped on the counter to get close to the sound, just now trying to find where the sound was coming from. She is watching that vent though.
Just so many props, i.e. people, children with brain cancer, etc., to try and make his points. It was really just a really unpleasant, difficult thing to watch. But as you said, one of the hardest things to watch is just the blatant disregard for how in court filings they say one thing, but
the reason why that's any kind of significant is Dublin has not seen or heard of her since she was young.
Howard. Hi there, my beautiful friend. Hope you are doing well. I miss seeing you. Love you, my friend.
Oh, Howard. Glad to have you here, bud. But Dublin heard of her for her first time since she was a baby, and it got her attention.
But last night,
It kind of looked at
he
me
says
funny.
to the American people, to everybody, that Elon Musk is the head of Doge. There it is, right there. He says he's the head of Doge, and then he's standing up. Everyone's applauding, telling him he's doing a great job. I mean, that's exactly what was happening. And the reason that's stunning is, let me just frame this issue a little bit for people so they understand. So the Supreme Court makes it very clear from cases, right, case law that's interpreted, that people who serve in a, quote, continuing position in government and exercise significant authority on behalf of the United States must be appointed consistent with the Constitution's appointments clause, okay? So there's an appointments clause in the Constitution, and it's part of Article 2, and it essentially sets forth two ways you can appoint officers of the United States. There's principal officers. Okay, those are people who report directly to the president. They must be nominated by the president, and they're subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. Now, that's in the Constitution. For inferior officers, the Constitution allows Congress to give that power to the president alone.
No.
So, that meaning they don't have to have Senate confirmation. Okay? That person
I hope I'm not bothering you. I just enjoy you, buddy.
You're not bothering me at all,
by
but
the head of the department or by the president or the courts of law. And so is Musk an inferior officer or is he a principal officer? And that's obviously very important as to whether or not he has to be Senate confirmed, whether he has the authority.
honestly, it's just a little different for me to have people miss me over a short period of time. So it's just something I'm getting used to. It's not new. to me. Quite literally. I'm not used to having people liking me around that much. I'm used to people keeping me at a distance. So, no, it's not. It's me experiencing something new and kind of figuring how to deal with it. Because over here in America, they don't express that as much. It's kind of an implied thing. So the expression is new, and I'm kind of, well, not kind of, I am learning. It's just in time, it won't be.
YouTube. Howard, your beard is really growing. It looks amazing. I love it.
Actually,
no. Most of that isn't chin. Okay, I already know. Nick.
yeah. Next time I shower, I'm going to be shaving, and mustache will be gone. Just gonna be clear on that one. I don't typically keep a mustache. I don't like mustaches on me. It's a pain in the ass for doing several things, including smoking from my bubbler.
YouTube. Howard, love it.
To do the things that he's doing, whether he has to have hearings and financial disclosures and all the things that any principal officer has to have. And what they said in court was basically that this is in front of Judge Chutkin. What they said in court on the sworn statement on the record, you're an officer of the court. Oh no, nothing to see here. He doesn't work for Doge. He's not head of Doge. Nothing like that. Then to have him say in public to everyone, to the American people, that he is the head of Doge, it's just inconsistent.
Yeah.
And Judge Chutkin has reminded the Trump lawyers that there has to be candor to the court, essentially saying, don't lie. He's lying. And it's just the ultimate gaslighting, right? He says, oh, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. Oh, but but then he says something else. This is blatant. And I think the plaintiffs are going to have a field day with this. I mean, they're going to run into court. I think one already has run into court. Yeah, exactly. To basically say, look, this is what it is. And I just want to point out one little irony, which is Eileen Cannon said Jack Smith was illegally appointed because he was a principal officer, right? And he didn't have the advice and consent of the Senate, and therefore dismissed. Basically said he was too much authority, too much power, reported directly to the president. All that was a principal officer, and therefore he had to be appointed and confirmed by the Senate. If that applied to Jack Smith, MAGA is just being absolutely disingenuous, applying a different standard to Jack Smith than to Elon Musk. It's just outright blatant. For MAGA to hold on the one hand that Jack Smith was improperly appointed because of this principal officer appointment, but not Elon Musk. They're not honest. They're just dishonest brokers and interpret the law and facts as it suits them in their and we know that, right? That's how it's been. But to me, that was the starkest example of that.
Yeah, in fact, that night, that's a very, very good synthesis of inconsistencies in position taking that should end up undermining the Trump DOJ in court. Judge Authority, as I said, getting fed up. They want depositions. They want sworn statements. They're granting limited discovery on these particular issues, because they'll be able to. Federal judges are serial litigation process is very good at a number of things. One of them is to get to the bottom of facts and get evidence provided to courts. And they can do it through compelled discovery and depositions and ordered things. That's what judges get paid to do. So if there's a fact to be ferreted out, it's going to get ferreted out. So this whole shell game that the Trump administration has been playing and intentionally keeping their Department of Justice attorneys, beleaguered as they may be, complaining about being overworked and underpaid and having a day off since January 20th, because there's 95 cases, not my fault, not my problem. They purposely keep the DOJ in the dark so they have plausible, increasingly implausible deniability about what is the relationship between DOJ, the DOJ service, Elon Musk, the DOJ administrator, the Office of Personnel Management, who's got their fingers in the pie in terms of hitting the stop button of funding, who's killing the checks, who's firing the people. I mean, we are 45 plus days into this administration, or as I like to call it, the American hostage crisis. And judges can't get a straight answer out of anybody. One judge referred to it as so opaque, he can't even figure it out. And Donald Trump, much to the chagrin, I'm sure, of a forehead-slapping Carolyn Levitt, press secretary, who said, "Why do you hounds in the media? Why do you ask me questions? Why do you require me to answer?" I don't know, you're the press secretary, that's what your job is, that's taxpayers pay you to do. You know the answers to the things that keep her in the dark, or in the stupid, as I like to refer to it. And she says, "All right, I'll tell you who it is. It's not Elon Musk, or I will tell you from this podium." That was my favorite. I'm not going to tell. I know. I know in the 5th grade. I know. I'm just going to tell you. Okay.
Thank you.
That's not how that works in court, Caroline. But Carolyn Levitt has already spoken to the Trump administration already once over funding issues when she did that prominent social media posting where she said, no, we didn't reverse course on the president's executive order. We did it on the memo about funding. And every judge jumped on it and said, see? Reverse course. Exactly. Injunction granted. So that night, last night, at about 9:50 at night or so, within minutes, one of the cases filed a judge additional new evidence with the exact from YouTube and the quote and the pointing and the whole thing in a case involving certain types of federal contractors and workers. So we got that.
Can you imagine one of us lied to the federal judge like that? We'd get Rule 11 sanctioned in 2 seconds.
I get intense with the sanctions.
We'd be disbarred. And seriously, this is not a political campaign where basically politicians are somehow expected to lie and exaggerate. Well, it's just politics. In court, even though it's an adversarial process, you have a duty, obviously, to be completely honest. I mean, it's just unbelievable to me. But the thing is, they say the MAGA says the quiet part's out loud. And so
it's going to happen. But it's out loud. We're going to tease our next topics and go to a break. So what is going to happen when invariably a federal judge allows or orders Elon Musk for deposition?
Folks, this is U.S. Senator John Ossoff in Georgia. Now hear me out. I am the only Democratic senator who is inevitably a federal judge allows or orders Elon Musk for deposition. Now here's where the rubber meets the road, right? The Trump administration is saying he's a special purpose government employee working for the executive branch. He's an executive branch advisor, just like Anita Dunn was for Joe Biden. That's all. Nothing to see here. And they're going to try to put up executive privilege, right? And stop that deposition. And then we're going to be in front of the Supreme Court. What do you think happens there?
I think 2 things are going to happen. I think exactly what you just played out, right? That they're going to cite executive privilege, that he can't be called or to testify. That's number one. I think the other thing that's going to happen is the lower courts are all going to rule that it's clear that he's a principal officer and that he should be appointed with the advice and consent of the Senate. And then let's see what the Supreme Court does, right? I mean, that's the big question. There's no question in my mind about what's happening, about the facts here, and about what needs to happen. But it's just, will the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court has been doing its bidding for so long. At a certain point, when are they going to rein him in? There will be a point where they will rein him in. They have to rein him in. I think I can't imagine that they're going to allow Donald Trump to run roughshod over the laws of this country, only because, not because they care, but because they would be worried about making new law that could then allow a Democrat to do the exact same thing. I mean,
that's the thing that I don't even understand. I understand.
Yeah.
Said it's perfectly right.
No, you're not getting up here.
The fact that Donald Trump is a short timer and a short tracker and has a short time horizon, I get it. And they want to do massive destruction.
Good job.
The relationship between the government and the American people as they can, and reshaping the government in the 2 years they probably have until midterms and we get the House and the Senate back. But I don't get why they want to empower the future Democratic president, and there will be one. I don't know if it's, I'm hoping it'll be the next go-around. Maybe it's 2 go-arounds from now, but there will be a Democratic president. Why do they want to give him all these superpowers out of the United States Supreme Court? That part I never understood. That's always what has kept the Senate in check, the Senate in line. The
heater's on.
Worried, well, it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. We don't want that for the next guy. That doesn't seem to be a consideration. Why do you think that is?
Well, because I don't think anyone ever thought Donald Trump or anyone would go as far and as extreme and as lawless as he has. I think everyone thought there's certain unspoken rules that we just don't do and that we don't say. People call them norms. He's broken every norm, and I think they're going to see that. And I think eventually they will rein him in. It's just outrageous what he's doing and what he has done. And frankly, a lot of what he does is very performative, right? All these executive orders and with his dramatic kind of, here's this, here's that, I'm renaming this, I'm renaming that. It's very performative, and that's kind of the way he does things, and not as substantive. But these substantive things that he's doing, he's going to be, I think, eventually reined in. I can't imagine that he's going to get away with everything.
Well, we'll have the opportunity to see if the court is starting to do that when we come back from our first commercial break, because we're going to talk about the United States Supreme Court and a bombshell new ruling today, what it means and what it doesn't mean, what just happened at the Supreme Court related to a funding cutoff by Donald Trump, a major one for humanitarian aid around the country and for U.S. aid.
Young lady.
We're going to take our first commercial break.
That is enough.
There are many ways to support Legal Aid and the Midas Touch Network, the #1 YouTube channel in the world. I love saying that. The Midas Touch podcast, podcast #1. I think we're still in the top 10 as Legal AF. That's a reflection of the unique audience that we have, the community that's been built, how they're energized and activated. It didn't run away. It didn't run away high after November 5th, but they redoubled and came and are here for it. And we're here for them. We appreciate it. All of them. Hit the subscribe button. We're going to move towards 5 billion for Midas Touch. We're going to move. The odometer is going to go over 500,000 in the next day or two for Legal AF before its 6-month birthday.
Stop swatting at the puppy.
Testament to what this community is all
about. Bad girl.
So there's all those different ways. So why don't we take our first commercial break? When we come back, we'll talk about the United States Supreme Court and all that good stuff. So let's take our break. Building your best starts with the right products.
Okay, commercial break. Which, as usual, I turned down a little bit. But this is pretty much what the newscast is. We listen through a trusted news source. By trusted, I mean I've done my homework, check and make sure they do their homework. And there are still a few things that I have to correct as well. I have to correct them on, but that they're all off on. And they usually correct themselves. If not the one person themselves correcting themselves later on, it's somebody else. Might be good if they apologize when they buggered up, but man, they're a news source. Reeling the catfish. Reeling the catfish. In the catfish. In the catfish. This is getting dangerous. Here. Here. Come on. Thank you. Can't get the claws out of my fucking thigh. Ow. Who got the daddy? Hey, who got the daddy? Okay. Good girl. Thank you for apologizing. Mm-hmm. Ow.
Always on the lookout for ways to strengthen immunity and gut health, fitness and metabolism, and enhance my skin and hair radiance. Well, I recently discovered Barbara Colostrum. Barbara Colostrum can help optimize your whole body microbiome, strengthen your immune barriers along the bowel, sinuses, lungs, gut, urinary, and reproductive tract. Guard against particles.
Bless you.
Barbara Colostrum. Loaded. Can feel lighter. Probiotics are touted as a gut health solution. They only address one part of the four-part gut wall. And most products on the market are dead or they even Barbara Colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, optimizing the gut biome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which guards against irritants, unloading, and constipation. And if you work out regularly, as we all should, colostrum research and nutrient absorption, promoting muscle building and improved endurance, fueling cellular repair regeneration for faster recovery. As a husband and a new dad, I want to make sure as I age my body stays in good health. Barbara, we've worked out a special offer for my audience. See 15% off your first order. Go to trybarbara.com/legally or enter legally to get 15% off your first order. That's TRYARRA.com/legally. Welcome back. Well, right before the commercial break, Karen, we were talking about bringing in Donald Trump and his administration. Well, ruling from the United States Supreme Court. I'll read from it. The Department of State versus AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition. We reported, certainly did a couple updates on it, that there was a case before Judge Ali, not to be confused with Judge Ali Khan, another DC federal judge. Judge Ali, a Canadian lawyer, a citizen and a federal judge appointed by Biden, one of the other judges, very, very good, very smart, had a case before him in which he had to determine whether any aspect of the $30 or $40 billion worth of U.S. aid that was cut off overnight immediately without any consideration for the ramifications around the world, whether that was standard or not. He particularly looked at a subcategory of funding that represents $2 billion worth of services and goods already provided. So these are contractors that were just looking to get paid for stuff they already did. Now we know what Donald Trump's relationship is with contractors who need to get paid, because there's a trail of broken tears and unpaid bills when Donald Trump was in private real estate development. And so I'm not surprised that was the group that tried to get screwed. They ran in and said, hey, we got to get paid. These are, we're shoestring organizations. We're not rolling in the cash here. After a temporary restraining order hearing and briefing, the judge gave the Trump administration a couple of weeks to turn on the spigot and get the $2 billion out the door. Finding it was arbitrary and capricious, it was illegal, it was unconstitutional under separation of powers, and it needed to be done forthwith. Donald Trump didn't do a darn thing about it. A couple weeks went by, and the plaintiff's lawyers let the judge know the money hasn't been turned on, hasn't been paid. While there was other reporting about Elon Musk's Doge bros going in behind the scenes to countermand instructions to make payment and just unchecking boxes so that people weren't getting paid, even though Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, said they had to be paid. So all of that came back to Judge Ali. Judge Ali got annoyed. Judge Ali gave them 3 days to turn on the payments or he finally condemned. And that was last Tuesday at midnight. It didn't happen because the Trump administration ran ultimately to the United States Supreme Court. Justice Roberts entered an administrative stay just for a short amount of time to allow fuller briefing, not full briefing, but full briefing. Friday, there was a brief that was filed by the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition. Can you think of an organization that needs our humanitarian money more than the AIDS Vaccine Advocacy Coalition? And after seeing the brief, they got together as a 9-judge panel, and they took a vote. And 5 votes came out in a surprising way. Karen, take it from there. What was the 5? How did the 5 rule? What's the new ruling? And what did Alito do? If you need me to do it, I'll do some reading from it.
Yeah, I mean, look, they ruled against Trump and the Trump administration, which was surprising. Justice Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett sided with the three liberal, more leaning liberal judges. By the way, speaking of Justice Roberts, what was up with Donald Trump thanking him last night and saying he'll never forget, right, in front of the American people? Thanking him for what? I mean, we can only imagine, but they sided against the Trump administration, which was a pretty stunning loss, right? Basically saying, no, you can't do that. You can't just, in this disorganized, disordered, really irresponsible way, just not pay people for work that they've already done, work that's been appropriated by Congress, right? It's just ridiculous. I mean, like, there's lots of other money that this doesn't involve. This just involves $2 billion. But it essentially said, no, it sent it back to just Judge Ali, the district court judge, to say, okay, Judge Ali, you originally gave a deadline of 11:59 p.m. a week ago. This money had to be paid. Obviously, that has passed because we gave an administrative stay while we considered this in lightning speed over the course of the weekend, and said, so please do a schedule that, clarify and basically come up with a reasonable schedule that the government can meet. Don't make something that they can't do, but also get these people paid. This money has been appropriated by Congress, and it's been spent already. You have to pay your bills. It's outrageous. So that was a good thing. It seems slightly ridiculous that our United States Supreme Court has to deal with these emergency applications. It's almost like they're the advisory board to the President of the United States. I mean, normally the Supreme Court, which gets, these numbers better than me, but gets many writs of certiorari, people who want to go to the court, and they see maybe 80 cases, they hear maybe 80 cases a year, something like that.
It's only up to 60 over this last 10 years. Yeah. So
there you go, 60 cases a year. And I think we're going to see that this year, it's probably going to be very highly weighted at having the Trump administration being on one side of that V. And they're going to take many of those cases, and it takes away from, frankly, other issues and other plaintiffs and defendants who want to have their cases heard by the Supreme Court because they only have a limited bandwidth. So it's just shocking to me that whether or not you pay your contractors has to go to the Supreme Court of the United States. I mean, it's kind of a waste and ridiculous because what they're doing is clearly lawless. So it was sent back down to Judge Ali, who's going to have to determine when this gets paid, and these people will get paid. But this isn't going away. There's still billions of dollars in USAID funds that have been appropriated by Congress and impounded by Donald Trump and Elon Musk saying not to pay it. And so this is going to keep trickling and trickling up.
Want to stop
Keywords.
tracks through Hims.com.
Keywords trickling up.
That work best for you.
Yeah, so we also have sort of how the lineup is going to work going forward. We've got the pro-president Article 2 Imperial Unified Unitary President model people, which is Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas. And then, I posted just the other day on Hot Ticket on Legal AF YouTube channel about where is Amy Coney Barrett and Justice Roberts going to be in all this? Because if where's that flag going to be in the tug of war? If Amy Coney Barrett, which she just demonstrated, is going to be the true swing vote, she's going to be, even though she's right of center, at least she's towards the center, she could side and be the fifth vote for many, many of these things, as long as Roberts comes along. You can't count on Kavanaugh, Gorsuch. You certainly can't count on Alito and Thomas. So Alito writes a scathing attack on the majority. I'll just read you 2 paragraphs from it. Now, again, he spent a considerable amount of time taking Judge Ali out to the woodshed. Unfortunately, when you're a Supreme Court justice, you need 5 people to take somebody out to the woodshed, and he only had 4. So it sort of fell on deaf ears. Like, it's self-aggrandizing. It's rude. I'm like, what are you talking about? Separation of powers, the Administrative Procedures Act. But for Alito, and for that wing of the alt-right wing of the Supreme Court, it's all about, what about the Supremacy Clause? The president is all-knowing and all-powerful and infallible. I'm like, are we talking about the Pope or the president? What's going on here? And anything about funding, that $2 billion, we'll never get it back. Right. This was properly paid out.
Right.
Pursuant to an analysis by a federal judge who issued a temporary restraining order.
Right.
And just to be clear on what the ruling was, before I get to this 2 paragraphs in Alito's dissent, which was joined by the others, the other 3, which is important for the future, that's why I want to talk about it, is what Ali's been sort of instructed to do. He'll keep his 5 votes, but they told him how with like a wink. They said, you know what? You got your preliminary injunction hearing going on next. The deadline that you already set passed, so you can set another deadline, but you need to give the administration kind of enough time to implement whatever your rules are and do it off your preliminary injunction ruling. And then if you do it that way, you'll have 5 votes to support you. If you don't, you see the crazies next to us. That's sort of how I read the majority. Now here's what Alito wrote. I'll just read you the one that everybody's quoting, and then the other paragraph that I think is actually more relevant to what's going on here. It's the way he framed the issue, this straw man framing, which led inexorably to his attack. Does a single district judge who likely lacks jurisdiction have the unchecked power to compel the government of the United States to pay out and probably lose forever $2 billion of taxpayer, or $2 billion of taxpayer dollars? The answer to that question is emphatic no. But a majority of this court apparently thinks otherwise. I'm stunned. That's illegal. Now, in the left, right? Now, first, he doesn't lack jurisdiction because of the Supremacy Clause. And what about the impoundment, the illegal impoundment of funds that were already allocated by another branch of Congress? And here's what he says in the last page, or second to last page, on page 8. Today, this is Alito again, the court makes a most unfortunate misstep that rewards an act of judicial hubris and imposes a $2 billion penalty on American taxpayers. I'm sorry, American taxpayers are probably in favor of paying their legitimate debts.
Yeah.
The district court has made plain its frustration with the government, and respondents raised serious concerns about non-payment. But the relief ordered is quite simply too extreme a response. A federal court has many tools to address a party's supposed nonfeasance. Self-aggrandizement of its jurisdiction is not one of them. I would chart a different path than the court does today. I must respectfully dissent. Now, what that means is, in the future, when anything has to do with Supreme Court power, we're going to watch this exact same struggle.
Yep.
Where 2 sides go to their respective corners. Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kagan, and Sotomayor are to the left. Alito, Thomas, Kavanaugh, and Gorsuch to the far right, leaving the middle and the center, whatever's left of it, to Roberts, who's unreliable, and Amy Coney Barrett. Now, Amy Coney Barrett's not even enough, because if she joins with the other 3, we lose 6-4 on these issues. Got to get Roberts. You can't count on Kavanaugh. You can't count on the rest. No. So you got to really aim for Amy Coney Barrett. It's going to be the Amy Coney Barrett court, and that's what worries MAGA. That's why I wasn't shocked to see them starting to cannibalize and eat their own.
Right.
Donald Trump needs to make sure this time around federal judges are picked. No GEI, no missteps. You can't pick Amy Coney Barrett. Did anybody know he has adopted children from Haiti? There's no better way to ensure that Amy Coney Barrett is going to side against Donald Trump than to attack her Haitian adopted children.
Yeah.
Keep keep going. And they were like, see how she treats the president during the rally? I mean, the joint session of Congress. You know, and I don't think the fist bump, pat on the shoulder thing, where the very uncomfortable looking Roberts helped him, because as soon as that was over, they issued this morning the decision. You know, it was already done. The decision against Donald Trump on a major funding issue. So that, you know, that's not that false bravado or whatever. You got my bullshit.
Yeah, and look, Justice Thomas is a dishonest person, in my opinion.
That's an understatement.
Amy Coney Barrett is, I think she's a Republican. She believes she's a conservative. She is very right-wing, but she doesn't appear to be dishonest.
Agreed.
She, I think, honestly believes in certain positions, but she also believes in the rule of law. And whereas I think some of the others, and I think Roberts to an extent as well, but I think his is more motivated by the court, wanting the court to seem legitimate. You know, it's his court. He's the Chief Justice, and he doesn't want to lose credibility of the Supreme Court. And so that's why I think the two of them tend to be the swings. The other four are just, you know, I think Thomas is I don't want to say anything more, but I think he's probably the worst. And Alito is a close second. I mean, they will vote for MAGA anytime. It doesn't matter what the law is.
Yeah. Court Accountability Action, our colleagues and contributors over on the Legal AF YouTube channel, do a great job talking about corruption at the federal court level and up to the United States Supreme Court level, and have done a number of exposés about Sam Alito. You should see what he does abroad when he hangs out with the monarchist European Eurotrash rich people who he parties with all summer, and what his beliefs are. And this is not anti-religious, especially on Ash Wednesday, but they come from a papist, Catholic, monarchist background in Europe, and he's a fanboy of that whole thought process. So for him to have a Pope King as president is sort of a natural extension of his belief system. What I agree with, I totally agree with you on Amy Coney Barrett. She's not ideological that way. She's just your classic kind of Republican. She's sort of, you know, if Sandra Day O'Connor was around today, she'd probably be a lot like Amy Coney Barrett, because she'd be more right of herself than she was, you know. And we're just going to have to live with that. And if you're an advocate at the Supreme Court, you got to aim for Amy Coney Barrett if you have any hope as the swing, if you have any hope of prevailing. So we got that going for us. I always feel sometimes I get a little despondent during our own reporting, but I think it means that it's going to be a case by case basis that we're going to see how the Supreme Court. Sometimes we're going to be, yay, Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett did the right thing, and sometimes we're going to be like, what do you mean they sided with the other three? And it's just going to be, and it's going to be very hard to see a path or a rhyme or a reason or a pattern. There's going to be like, well, wait a minute, like today we talk about this, tomorrow there'll be almost
you rang
exactly identical case, but they'll find some factual issue to give one to make a makeup for Donald Trump, and you and I are left scrambling to try to make sense of it all. Let's turn to the other Supreme Court decision. Speaking of crap, let's talk about taxes.
Oh shit! Fucking point for YouTube. That was a well-placed ad, YouTube. For real. Well done. Let's talk about other crap. Cut taxes. And you couldn't hear the cut. That's the best part of it. You couldn't hear it. Oh, shit. That was good. Good job.
Crap. Let's talk about poop in our water supply. So we knew, right? We knew when the Supreme Court got their
all their votes together, and Donald Trump was in, that there was going to be an assault on the Environmental Protection Agency. We knew it when they got rid of the Chevron decision, which credited experts in the field in the various agencies with their initial interpretations and regulations. Now you've got Donald Trump, who's announced to the world in executive orders that only he and he alone, along with Van Bondi, can make any interpretation of any regulation in any agency.
Or the end of this video, whichever comes first.
How's that going to work exactly? He can barely do his day job. How's he going to start looking at federal interpretations of guidelines? So, and then judges have to do it because they're not going to be able to rely on all that agencies. So we said, okay, that's going to hollow out the Environmental Protection Agency, and clean water and clean air are going to be under attack. I never knew the clean water and clean air care were partisan, that it was a Democrat and a Republican thing. I just thought it was a not dying thing, being healthy.
You don't have spacewalk over there for a reason.
It was fine the way to make it partisan. So the Supreme Court had a case brought by San Francisco, of all places, which apparently doesn't care about what is in the drinking water. And they were arguing about certain types of permits that, and the EPA coming in and doing some kind of blanket, prove to us that you don't have poop in your water. Prove to us that what you're doing doesn't have the end effect of having raw sewage dump into the water supply for clean water purposes. People didn't like that. They wanted, I don't know, case-specific things. What did you talk about the Supreme Court decision, and what did you make of the ruling and this court's approach to the environment?
I mean, this is the biggest head-scratcher I can imagine. But, frankly, every environmental or scientific ruling shocks me that that's political. Science should not be political.
Thank you!
End of story. And you could say all you want that you're pro-small government, there's too much government, I don't want government, but there's a couple things you want government for. And one of them is clean water. You don't want raw sewage in your water. That is something all Democrats and most Republicans should agree on, right? There's certain things that you think government should be able to regulate. It's a no-brainer. Waste and poop in your water. I mean, talk about the decline of civilization. That would be the end of our civilization, right? If people got sick because they couldn't.
Never mind the fact that there's outbreaks of dysentery now. Fucking A. Why is it so hard for people to understand that these regulations are put in place for a reason?
Drink clean water. That's just so fundamental to what a government function is. And so this decision was just a complete head scratcher for me. I just couldn't believe that this is how they came down, and this is what they said. And essentially, what they said in a 5-4 decision is that when you're looking at a permit, you can't consider the effects of the permit. I mean, that's essentially what they said, that you're looking at the effects as opposed to the actual permit. But again, what's the point of a permit if it's not to consider the effects? All permits are like that, right? You get a permit to put up a building in New York City. They're looking at safety. It's all about the building not falling down or catching fire or whatever. That's the whole point of a...
Or debris during the building process falling and hurting somebody, or causing a traffic accident, or blah, 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 blah. There is a ton of shit related to it. Like I've said several times here, the world is 50 Shades of Grey. And y'all who don't care about how things get done as long as they get done, you're not paying attention to that. You're thinking black and white. The world don't work that way. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. There are a few absolutes, and those that are come from science.
Permit. There's no other reason for it. So I found this decision to just be crazy, outrageous, and
even those are tentative. Even science, in and of its nature, is continually evolving and learning. So, let's be real. The world's not black and white. Treating it as such is foolish as fuck.
so flawed in so many ways. And look, they gave some, well, the government has plenty.
If somebody's not a better example of that, it'd be me. And I don't mean that as a egotistical comment. Everything I've been through, I should be a piece of shit. Completely and utterly. I should hate the world and everyone in it. I don't. Because I'm one of those shades.
Plenty of ways that they can check and ensure clean water. And so there's no reason they need to go to the permitting process. But that just seems to be, I think, inefficient and just in the realm of this is insanity. That's what I thought.
Our friends at Simplified SCOTUS on X, this is the way they summarize City and County of San Francisco versus EPA and the decision. EPA's position. Can you guys please meet the standards for water quality? We need you to test it and be below the limit of pollutants, or we will fine you $10 billion. You can't dump sewage. And then City and County, you literally cannot make me test the water. Like, I'm following all of the rules you have. Just sometimes the poop kind of slips in the water, and when we dump it, like, we have a lot of water to deal with, So poop just gets in it. And the Supreme Court says, literally, poop water happens. It's not in section blah, blah, blah of the Clean Water Act that you can test the poop amount. You have to trust the poop purification process. So eat, or should I say drink shit, EPA. I love them. I'm going to invite them on to have their own weekly hot take, a simplified SCOTUS. I like that a lot. We're going to simplify a lot of different things when we come back, particularly...
I love to eat shit.
I like shit. Drink shit.
Yeah, shit.
We're going to talk, speaking about eating shit, we're going to talk about Manhattan DA still having to fight off Donald Trump about a 34-count felony conviction, and where the appeal of that is going to take place. We're not even talking about the merits of an appeal. We're talking about which courthouse the appeal is going to be heard in. Because of course, Donald Trump wants to have his appeal ultimately heard by his fist-bumping buddy, John Roberts. And we're going to see what the Second Circuit has to say about that with a new final brief that was filed by Donald Trump's new lawyers. Attention. Donald Trump has got new lawyers. Big Law is no longer finding Donald Trump to be radioactive, and they've decided they're going to make a lot of money, get back in the business of representing Donald Trump. How convenient. So Sullivan and Cromwell affirmed the thought that Karen and I know well from our days in New York, has decided to represent the President of the United States in their brief. I don't think it makes the brief any better, or their legal argument any better. We're going to cover all of that, but first, another word from our pro-democracy sponsors. Look, let me tell you.
Who said you could ask me out? Do you even have an ability?
Going to cross.
Our pro-democracy sponsors.
Look,
let me tell you. If there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with pre-alcohol. Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. So, I first gave pre-alcohol a try when I was celebrating our relocation and unpacking the last of the 150 moving boxes. I drank it before my first scotch and soda. And you wouldn't believe how on top of my game I felt the very next morning. This March Madness, don't let anything sideline your celebrations. Grab pre-alcohol before you go out and be ready to cheer on your team all day and night long. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use Legal AF at checkout. Z-Biotics is back with a 100% money-back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money. No questions asked. Remember, to head to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use the code LegalAF at checkout for 15% off.
This episode of Legal AF is brought to you by OneSkin, one of my favorite sponsors and one of my favorite products that I use every single day in my skincare routine. I had no idea how transformative using something like OneSkin can be, and you use it, it's easy, and just a cream remotion on your face. That's where I use it, and there's a big difference. People notice. People tell me all the time that I look younger than my age. I'm 58 years old. I'm a grandmother. And I think one of the reasons that people think I look younger is because of my skin, and it's because of the routine that I do every single day. That includes OneSkin that has a proprietary OS1 peptide, which is a peptide that switches off the damaged senescent cells that cause lines, wrinkles, and that thin, crepey skin that you get with age. So it's this amazing product. It is founded by and led by an all-woman team of skin longevity scientists, and it's backed by extensive lab and clinical data to validate their efficacy and safety for all skin types. But no matter how much it's proven scientifically, to me, the fact that people notice a difference and comment, that is, to me, the best endorsement of OneSkin and this product. It's just fantastic, and it's the world's first skin longevity company focusing on the cellular aspects of aging. So it keeps your skin looking and acting younger for a longer period of time. And so for a limited time, you can try it with 15% off using code LegalAF at oneskin.co. There's no M at the end. That's 15% off oneskin.co with code LegalAF. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you.
Welcome back. Hit the blue, I don't think it's blue. Why do I keep saying that? Hit the subscribe button on Midas Touch. Help get 5 million. Come on over to Legal AF, the YouTube channel where we sit at the intersection of law and politics on a daily basis, 6-8 videos a day. Karen Freeman Ignifilo, often there. Tina Dahl, Sean Wu, Court Accountability Action, and their contributors every day, every way at Legal AF, and help us turn the odometer to 500,000 people. All right, turn it over to you. Why don't you catch everybody up in case they, like Rip Van Winkle, they forgot what happened with 34 count felony conviction from your old office. And then what is this new fight? And what do you think the Second Circuit's going to do about it? And then the U.S. Supreme Court when they finally get it.
So, just to remind everyone, since the beginning of the Manhattan DA case, Trump and his lawyers have tried to, quote, remove the case to federal court. That's a term of art, removal. And there's a federal statute that says that you can remove a federal officer to federal court. It's 28 United States Code 1442A1. And it essentially says the federal officer can remove any prosecution relating to relating to any act under the color of federal office. And so they've been trying to get the Manhattan DA case to the Supreme Court through this removal process several times, and they were shot down several times. I think it was twice at least. And they basically said, no, there's nothing about this. You weren't, at the time that you paid, that false business entries were made in the picture of your porn star through your lawyer and lying about what you were doing in order to hide the information from the American people during the presidential campaign. That was entirely personal. And so that was not presidential. That had nothing to do with being president. And so that's why they did not allow removal previously. So then what happened was, went to trial, was convicted, all 34 counts, and then during that time, after he was convicted, United States versus Trump was a decision that came down by the United States Supreme Court. That is the famous now presidential immunity ruling. There was a lot of litigation post-verdict saying, talking about the case and the trial and saying, in light of that ruling, the conviction should be reversed, saying that certain evidence came in that should not have come in because of that ruling. And so there was a lot of litigation about that delayed the sentence and it delayed the sentence until after the election and after Donald Trump was elected president. And he was sentenced to an unconditional discharge, which means there's zero conditions. It's just over. A judgment is entered.
Yeah.
There's no jail, there's no fine, there's no probation, there's no community service, there's literally nothing. No restrictions. It's called an unconditional discharge. It just means your sentence is final and the judgment is entered and you are officially a convicted felon. And so what happened was they still now want to remove the case to federal court and go through this appellate process. Just side note for a second, parenthetically, Popok, I thought one of the arguments they were making before is you can't prosecute a sitting president because he's too distracted. He can't possibly defend himself. It would be too distracting. And that's one of the reasons that the Office of Legal Counsel at the White House has always held that the Department of Justice cannot prosecute a sitting president or can't because it's not appropriate. Okay, if that's the case, why does he have the right to appeal during this time? It seems like it should be if you can't do anything. I mean, that's why Judge Chutkan's case was put on pause, if you recall, during when that case was still around, because it was one of these. It's one of the things that Trump has argued over and over and over again is that you pause these things. But I just want to parenthetically point out that it suits him. When it suits him, he certainly isn't too busy or too distracted to focus on an appellate process. So getting back to the appeal, what they're doing is they're basically going to the Second Circuit, which is the federal appellate court. They're not going through the state court appellate process, which is what they're supposed to do. They're supposed to appeal to the intermediate court in New York, the state court, the appellate division, First Department. And then after that, it goes to New York's highest court, which is called the Court of Appeals. And that's how normal cases get appealed in when you're convicted of a state crime in New York. What they did, however, is they went to the Second Circuit, which is the appellate term of the federal courts. And what they're saying is the case should have been removed. Again, it should have been in federal court. It should have never been in state court to begin with. They're regurgitating the same argument, but what they're adding is we couldn't have made this argument before because United States versus Trump didn't exist, setting this precedent of presidential immunity at the time that we made our previous removal arguments. And therefore, now that there's new case law and new precedent, we want this to be removed to federal court. And if they get to remove it to federal court, they will have to find that a federal defense was implicated and that he was a federal officer. So that's what it would require to remove it to federal court. And once they do that, I think that opens the door for the Supreme Court to reverse the case under U.S. v. Trump. It invites it. So I don't think the Second Circuit is going to allow that or hold that finding. What will the Supreme Court do if they don't make that finding? That's up to anybody. We'll see what they do. I think they uphold this conviction. I think this was entirely personal conduct. I don't think the evidence that came in, the very limited evidence that came in that might have been, that might not be permitted under U.S. v. Trump, certain of Hope Hicks's testimony, some of Michael Cohen's testimony, perhaps. I think that any court will find that was harmless error in the face of all the overwhelming evidence of Donald Trump's guilt. So I think, but again, I still believe in the rule of law and the truth. I think so. So maybe I'm optimistic, but I think the Supreme Court will ultimately uphold this. But again, who the heck knows at this point?
No, I agree with you. I think it gets upheld. I think originally, God, it's been so long now. It's almost 2 years in May that Judge Hellerstein, I was on holiday, you were on holiday. Remember we did that reporting? Judge Hellerstein made the right decision in finding that federal officer removal was not present in a, no pun intended, in a cover-up of a private affair. There was no arguable, colorable federal.
CDKeys.com. Check out the latest games and upcoming releases at the best prices.
You're okay.
Federal presidential conduct that was being implicated, just because Michael Cohen testified about stuff on the Midas Touch podcast or on Legal AF and in court about, he might have gotten some consultation from Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, about whether there was an election law violation. I mean, this is so minor. Yes, there is an aspect of the immunity decision that goes to immunity based on evidence or evidential immunity, but that's not the way you should apply it here when almost the entirety of the conspiracy that was the subject of the conviction was done while he was candidate Trump and not President Trump to cover. The reason he did the conspiracy, or what your old office referred to in court as the Trump Tower conspiracy, was to become president. It was the first example of election interference. And so all of that, the fact that after it, the payback, the payoff happened before he was president. The payback of the money, a couple of checks got cut while he was president, but that doesn't mean anything. And that shouldn't implicate federal officer removal, nor does it give him a federal defense. So again, this whole fight is not over the substance of what happened. It's not the appeal that we'll eventually see. Oh, the judge was biased. Oh, the judge's daughter works for Democratic causes. Oh, the judge donated $50 to Democrats. Oh, the judge let in evidence that they shouldn't have let in. Oh, there was reversible error. Okay, you know what? I'll take on that fight. It's not about that. It's about which appellate court is going to decide this. The Second Circuit, ultimately, which is the same court the appeal is up in front of, which is the Manhattan or New York appellate court, on the way to the feds at the Supreme Court level, or is it going to be the First Department Appellate Division in Manhattan, which is, just to keep it straight, is the state appellate court, and then the Court of Appeals in New York, the highest court in New York. The Appellate Division First Department. Are you a member of the Appellate Division First Department? Is that where you were sworn in?
Yeah.
Exactly. In the ceremonial courtroom. Very lovely moment with my parents, which I remember well. A lovely courthouse. I've been there a lot. It's right down the street from my old office. But it's either them who's sitting, remember, remind everybody, so they don't forget, there's a $450 million civil fraud case against Donald Trump, and we're still waiting. It's been like 8 months. We're still waiting for the ruling by the appellate division, that particular court, about how much of that judgment that was found by Judge Engoron is going to survive against Donald Trump. That's for another day, but that's the court. And then up to the Court of Appeals. The reason Donald Trump is fighting so hard to get the federal court for his appeal, even though he didn't get sentenced to anything by Judge Merchan, is he wants to get a fast track to the United States Supreme Court so that he and his, fist bumping buddy, John Roberts, can figure out the fuller extent of the immunity decision from last July. And, I think if he's got legitimate arguments about reversible error in a garden variety criminal trial in New York, where a 9-0 jury convicted him, he's got his appellate remedies for that. He's got his due process for that. And it's called the Appellate Division First Department and then the Court of Appeals. And he doesn't have to go to federal court and make a big federal case out of this just because he happened to get elected again, in this last election. And that's what the fight is all over. We'll continue to follow. That was the last brief. I expect that the Second Circuit is going to hold oral argument. It'll probably be on audio. We'll be able to report on it again here on Midas Touch and on Legal AF. Karen, anything else on that?
No, that covers it. That covers it well.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the last part, the last segment on the show, which is going to be this fight that's going on with Donald Trump firing workers through Elon Musk, through Doge, through the Office of Personnel Management. It's all come to a head when Donald Trump has decided, as part of getting all the executive agencies, regardless of whether they're bipartisan, regardless of whether they're independent, as created by Congress, getting them under his greasy thumb and saying, I need to control all my executive branches, or my executive agencies. And two in particular are particularly disturbing because they head the entire civil service program that was reformed by Congress, bipartisan, under Jimmy Carter in 1976. And that Civil Service Reform Act created the Merit Service Protection Board, which is a 3-person board, which can't have more than 2 people in the same party, which has 7-year terms and overlapping terms to keep it bipartisan and keep it independent and keep it free from partisan attack. And they're responsible for making sure the federal workers aren't attacked because of their bipartisan presidents and fired. And the person responsible for making sure that didn't happen got fired by Donald Trump, the watchdog. Same thing with Hampton Dellinger, who was also appointed by Joe Biden to a 5-year term as the Office of Special Counsel, which is not what it sounds like. It's a little-known agency that's sort of very inward-looking, very internal, that protects federal workers from getting blasted by an incoming president. And he got blasted by the incoming president. So 2 different judges took a look at it. Amy Berman Jackson, on behalf of Hampton Dellinger, and for the American Protection Service Board, Rudy Contreras. And we had.
You may have seen the news that Donald Trump says he will back Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Rudy Contreras. And we had 2 summary judgments, meaning the trial is over, and 2 losses for the Trump administration on their way to the United States Supreme Court. You want to synthesize those things together and then move it forward to the Supremes?
I mean, look, it's essentially what they're essentially doing is, as you put it, I think in a hot take, it's just fascinating to me that they're doing the very thing. It's just so ironic. They're doing the very thing these agencies were created to prevent, right? To this just firing for no reason, for partisan political reasons. I mean, that's the whole point of creating some of these positions was so that they are not political, so that they are not these political appointments subject to the whim of whoever is in office. And it's just shocking to me. You know, they're just so blatant about it. As I said, they do all the quiet stuff out loud. And essentially here, what happened was the judges put the people back into their jobs, into their positions. Hampton Dellinger is back being the head of the Office of Special Counsel. And you know, he's the one, as well as the 5,000 probationary employees that were fired without cause, without reason.
Yeah, well,
and,
I'd love to.
you know, it's a big win. It's a big win for law and order. It's a big win for the government and for people who depend on their jobs that they have. And for those of us who depend on the people who do those jobs, like making sure there's no poop in our water. I mean, that's who does that kind of stuff, right? Is civil servants. They're the ones who go out and keep us safe in so many different ways that we don't necessarily even know about and we take for granted. I mean, just think about the luxury of being able to turn on a faucet and drink water and not even think about it, and knowing that it's safe and knowing that you're not going to get sick from it. That's all because of the government. That's all because of civil servants. That is not because of the goodness of the heart of capitalism and companies that want to make money.
Yeah.
And so what's happening is these jobs have been saved for now. And I think ultimately the Supreme Court is going to hear these cases, and we know because of what we've been talking about, there's 4 people who are going to be for Trump, and let's see what Roberts will do. Let's see what Amy Coney Barrett will do, and we'll see what they end up doing. But for the rule of law, so far the lower courts, they're not being partisan. They're upholding what the law is, and so. You know, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think the analysis that we used, they were spookily similar. I mean, Rudy Contreras had the benefit of reading Amy Berman Jackson's the day before, but their 2 orders were very, very, very similar. Almost the page length and analysis comes down to 2 cases. 2 cases you and I talked about. Humphrey's executor, case from 1935, involving, I believe, Hoover, who's Donald Trump is rapidly emulating as a failed president before our very eyes, in which it was ruled that a board like the Federal Trade Commission, you can't just fire the head of the Federal Trade Commission, which was set up by Congress to be an independent bipartisan board. If Congress set it up with a for-cause firing. See, Donald Trump's argument is, you can't ever put for-cause firing. I get to independently fire whoever I want that's in the executive branch. Otherwise, you've impinged and infringed on my executive power, and it violates separation of powers. So that's what he's arguing. He's arguing that it's unconstitutional to make him work with people that he doesn't want to work with in the executive branch, regardless of how great they are at their job. And everybody, for instance, the Merit Protection Service Board person, everybody admits but she is fantastic at her job for the American people. She took like a several thousand case backlog, and she got rid of 99% of it in just the 2 years that she was there. Like, she's really good at her job. That's the sad part. That's the dirty secret of what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing. They're firing people who are really, really good at their job that we spent a lot of taxpayer dollars over a number of years to train, to learn how to be a very good civil servant, a very good technical expert in the department or agency that they're in, and we just fired them like they were yesterday's trash because of Donald Trump, never to be replaced. These people will never come back to the government, and we've just lost their expertise. I know that Alina Hava likes to say, we're probably not qualified for the job. If anybody knows about not being qualified for a job, it would be Alina Hava.
Yeah, she's an expert in that. I agree.
Yeah, seriously. So you've got the can Congress create independent bipartisan boards and require that people get fired from them only for cause, for doing bad things, yes or no? And the Humphreys executive case is on point. And even though it's from 1935, it's still the dispositive case. And then there was a later case called the Sellis Law case that came out in 2020 that based itself on that and said almost the same thing on the flip side, describing which federal agencies have the administrators or the heads or the board members exert so much executive power that the president should be able to fire them. That's different. That's different than we have. We're in the FTC Hoover period, not in the Cellular Law Firm period, which is this other case. And so this is going to be a decision now, as you teed it up in the United States Supreme Court, whether they're going to rein in an out-of-control president, having created a imbalanced, having destroyed the careful balance of power in co-equal branches of government and checks and balances. Are they going to take anti-measures to try to reinstall it? I don't know. Are you I can't find it quick enough. Are you a New York Magazine fan? Karen?
Visit G2A.com for all your Xbox needs, from the latest games to
Karen?
I think that, my New York Magazine fan.
You subscribe?
I don't.
Okay. So they do a lot of amazing covers. And one of the covers that they just did was the framers and the founders of the Constitution being shown the door by Elon Musk holding that little box that you get when you get fired from a job. So it's like the people that wrote the Constitution being shown the door. And I'm like, that's exactly what's going on right now. The quickest way for people to take what we're talking about, what we're teaching about, is to take it into the streets after we're speaking truth to each other and get ready for the midterm elections. That's the binary choice. That's where we get to throw the bastards out and run them out on the rail. Give me back the Congress and the Senate, and I assure you Donald Trump will be impeached, convicted, and removed. So if you don't like what's going on, we need to band together. Because if the Democrats had the House, if we had the Senate, we would be drafting articles of impeachment or getting them created. Donald Trump would have been impeached already based on many of the things that he's done as an abuse of power. That's what the framers and the founders wanted to happen. What they didn't envision is that a president would get swept into office on a phony populist message supported by a do-nothing and completely spineless Congress and bootlickers for that same president. And if they did envision that would happen and what that would do to the checks and balance system, they thought the Supreme Court would be the final savior. And having failed all of that, then the American people get to take back their government at the midterm. And that's sort of where we're left. We're left in this twilight between the Supreme Court doing its job, and we see how difficult that's been, and the American people who own our government, sending the rest of these nutty, crazy, unpatriotic people packing. That's what we'll continue to call for right here as we watch this failing presidency. Karen, we've reached the end of the show. Many ways to support us. Before we get there, let's do we have that final word. Final word, final messaging. What do you got?
Wow, final word. I didn't even think about that today. But,
that's good.
Last night was hard to watch, so I'm still recovering from it. It was hard to watch. It's hard to see where our country, how far we've come. But I'm also just heartened by the growth of the fact that the Midas Touch, that the Brothers podcast is number one. I think there's still a lot of really good people out there who want to hear the truth, who believe in our beliefs and our fundamental core beliefs. And the fact that we are growing, we're over 4.2 million subscribers on the Midas Touch Network, that Legal AF has the following that it has, frankly, and the support that it has. It's people who really still there. It just makes me feel like hope is not lost, that there are still many, 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 many people, hopefully the majority of people, who care about the same shared values that we talk about here, namely truth, the rule of law, and our democratic ways. So I'm feeling good today because of that, and I appreciate being able to spend every Wednesday with all the people who watch this show religiously. My dad in particular. Hi, Dad. I know he always looks forward to this every Wednesday, and it's just great to see you, Popa.
You too. It's certainly one of my favorite humans. Besides my dartboard, I do have something that keeps me honest and
Okay. So that's going to be the end of that one. And I'm going to see if I can take out the dog. See if it's going to be safe to do so. I don't think it is. You stay right there. Stay. Cool. Alright. Fucking awesome. So, I will be right back. While I walk this big football. Ladyboo. No, I said come here. Not go there. You're gonna stop. Yeah. You're gonna stop. Yes, you are. Or you're gonna end up finding yourself in trouble. Right. All right. Hey. Good boy. All right, go. One more point for her. Right back. Lie down. All right, almost done. Sorry, guys. Wow. No barking? What, baby girl? No barking? Oh boy. Look at your treat. You're like, I wait, be a good boy, I wait. And now I've actually got sugar for my coffee. Well, get back up there! Get back up there! Boo. Thank you. So don't lose it. Lay down. Lay down. Good boy. One moment, and we will let you have your treat. I really don't like using brown sugar for my coffee, but I'll get over it, because it's better than nothing. And it's better than powdered sugar as well. Seal strip? What is this? It is a strip to seal it back up afterwards. What? That's a new thing to me. Then again, seeing brown sugar in a bag would be oh. Or I should say a bag inside the box. That's the part about brown sugar I always eat. It likes to be solid. Okay. Let's get the next dippy going. Loki is being a very good boy, waiting patiently. So, one of the things we have on the docket for today... Oh! Looks like it's the next thing. Oh, it's a post? Man, I don't want a post. I wanted to see the freaking thing. Post. Oh, never mind. I'll have to check on Fox News for it. But apparently, Fox News attacked the Midas Touch network, which is our news network we use here. So I'm kind of curious as to what they said. Oh my god. It's a brick. It is literally a brick of ocean. So I've got to fry chunks of it off to put in my coffee. And then see if I can get the lid to close on there. Not without a little bit of grinding. It's in one of those good old-fashioned Tupperware containers. Now. Which have a lid that's perfect for doing that shit. So, technically, our newscast is over already. I thought I had more, but maybe not. I'm going to have to check. In one moment. Trying to get this brick of sugar broken up. It's kind of disturbing to me in the same way ice is. But nowhere near as bad. What? No, they're not for you. You monster. Okay, we do have two more. So we're not over
We got
yet.
2 district court cases on a rocket ship to the United States Supreme Court, and they have to do with Donald Trump's attempts to fire independent watchdogs who were created by Congress in the 1970s in order to make sure that federal workers weren't retaliated against for political or partisan reasons. I spoke to you the other day about Hampton Dellinger, who's the head of the Special Counsel's Office,
Not yours.
which is part of protecting federal workers who have whistleblower issues or other issues to make sure they don't get summarily fired. And now we've got a new decision that just came out on the heels of one from yesterday by Amy Berman Jackson. We have a new decision by a federal judge in D.C. named Rudy Contreras in favor of Kathy Harris, who is the head of the companion of the Office of Special Counsel, the head of the Merit Systems Protection Board, the little known, little referred to, but very important MSPB, created by Congress as a bipartisan entity with staggered terms to make sure that no one party can control this particular watchdog.
Good boy.
When the watchdog gets fired, it's up to the federal courts to step in, and that's what Rudy Contreras has done with a new opinion granting a summary judgment and putting Kathy Harris back in her seat. That, along with Hampton Dellinger's case, are going to go fast track to the United States Supreme Court. I'm Michael Popak. You are on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. Let's break it down for you. This new 35-page order, you're going to learn more about a little-known 1935 case known as Humphrey's executor than you ever thought you wanted to, along with a 2020 case called Celia Law. It stands for those cases, stand for the proposition that a president, in the case of Humphrey's executor, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, can't fire an independent head of an independent body or board created by Congress without cause. Has to be for cause. Can't be on a whim. Can't because they don't like the political stripes of the person. Just because they are in the executive branch, they were created by Congress, usually in a bipartisan way with the then president, in order to, in the case of the Merit Service Protection Board, to reform the civil service and to make sure that they were protected from ultimately retaliation by whoever was president at the time. And so in Humphrey's executor, the Supreme Court said that when it related to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, that Franklin Delano Roosevelt couldn't dismiss the independent head without cause. Even though generally, if there is an executive branch member who's part of the executive branch, it's exercising executive power, in general, the president as Article II officer, the only Article II officer, can get rid of that person without cause. You know, they're not forced to work with people they don't want to work with who are exercising executive power. But here, when you have what Judge Contreras refers to as an inward-looking board that's just looking at federal workers, that doesn't interact with the greater economy or the world at large, it's just about the beehive of federal workers and how they're treated, and the Congress desired them to be independent, then the very independent nature of the position requires that they only be fired for cause. And everybody agrees that there's absolutely no cause for Kathy Harris to be fired. She got into that. Listen to these numbers. They fired her with a one-liner, "Thank you for your service." I'm not making this up. It's almost like a joke. "Thank you for your service."
That's not
she
it.
was so successful that she took a backlog
That doesn't even look like it, does it?
of tens of thousands of cases
Did he
and
look
got
the
rid
same
of
to you?
99% of that backlog in just a couple of years.
No, I'm not going to use it.
By any measure, she's a sterling example of government service. So you don't just fire her. So what I find remarkable is when you lay Judge Contreras' and his reliance on Humphrey's executor, the case from the Supreme Court in 1935, and then Judge Amy Berman Jackson's decision to keep the two sides of the coin here, the Office of Special Counsel, who's the advocate for federal workers as well. When you keep those two sides together, when you put the two cases together, and the reliance on Celia Law case, which relied on Humphrey's executor from a more recent vintage of the Supreme Court in 2020, is how similar Contreras' decision and Amy Berman Jackson's decision are. I mean, Contreras that scared the crap out of her. Berman Jackson having just issued hers about 48 hours ago. But it's remarkable in structure and in an argument and analysis. Let me read to you from some of the pages so you see what I mean. I mean, not to compare and contrast, but just what this case is.
But you gotta stop swinging at him.
Harris claims that her termination was ultra vires. That's a fancy legal term for outside and irregular, outside the strictures of law, in violation of statutory authority, violated the separation of powers between Congress and the President, and was contrary to law under the Administrative Procedures Act. She argues that this case falls squarely within the heartland of Humphrey's executor versus the United States from 1935 and its progeny, meaning cases that followed after it, and that the board is a traditional multi-member body that does not wield traditional executive power. In Humphrey's executor, Judge Contreras continues on page 7, the Supreme Court upheld the statutory provision identical to the one at issue here restricting removal of the FTC members, the Federal Trade Commission, because they were confirmed by the Senate and they're supposed to be bipartisan. In this case, it was actually Hoover, not Roosevelt, I'm sorry. It was the Great Depression right before FDR came in. Starting this year, I really wanted to build better eating habits. But between work and life and everything else, planning healthy meals that actually taste good felt overwhelming. That's when I found Marley Spoon. And it's genuinely changed how I cook at home. This podcast is sponsored by Marley Spoon. And I'm genuinely excited about this because it's helping me fast-track my way to eating well without all the stress. And with my code LegalAF, you can get up to 27 free meals. Here's what I love. Marley Spoon gives you over 100 recipes to choose from each week. We're talking everything from cozy comfort food like the big batch beef stroganoff to lighter options like the salmon and green mustard, dill, sauce tray bake. There's literally something for every mood. Oh, and the timing couldn't be better. Marley Spoon just launched their new 15-minute express recipes. They put 3 of these on the menu each week. And if you've got a few extra minutes to spare, they got some great 20-minute options too. They'll help you get dinner on the table faster without compromising on quality or flavor. I especially love Marley Spoon's collection of Martha's Best recipes. They feature at least 2 of Martha Stewart's incredible recipes every single week, and they taste even better than you can imagine. I just recently made their creamy smoked salmon pasta. Marley Spoon sent me the baby spinach, the penne, the onion, the parmesan, the salmon, everything needed to make the dish myself. The best part about all this, I'm actually cooking at home more, spending less time stressing out about meals, and honestly, eating better than I have in a long time. It's like having a personal chef who's done all the planning and prepping, and you just get to do the fun part. This is what really sold me. Marley Spoon has a registered dietitian who looks at every recipe. So when I'm trying to eat healthier, I'm not just guessing anymore. This new year, fast track your way to eating well with Marley Spoon. Head to marleyspoon.com/offer/legalaf and use code LegalAF for up to 27 free meals. That's right, up to 27 free meals with Marley Spoon. One last time, that's marleyspoon.com/offer/legalAF for up to 27 free meals. And make sure you use my promo code LegalAF so they know I sent you. On page 9, the judge said, in the more recent cases, the Supreme Court ruled that for-cause removal provisions applying to independent agencies with a single director violated the separation of power. Okay, well, we don't have a single director in that way. The judge went on to say that neither of these cases is related to a multi-member body of experts heading an independent agency. Here you have multiple experts. No 2 can be from any one party. They serve staggered 7-year terms to insulate them from political retribution. That's exactly what Donald Trump has done. He's just walked right into the trap. On page 11 of his order, Judge Contreras says Humphrey's executor, that case we've talked about, remains alive and well, and it dictates the outcome here. The MSPB, the Merit Service Protection Board, is a traditional independent agency headed by a multi-member board or commission. It is a multi-member body of experts that is balanced along partisan lines. It is supposed to be non-partisan. Its board members serve on overlapping staggered 7-year terms, meaning that the president will have the opportunity to shape its leadership and therefore influence its activities over time. It does not wield substantial executive power on the bottom of page 12. Here's what else the judge said on the bottom of page 13, which is the heart of his decision, though we call it the radio of his decision. The MSPB's mission and purpose require independence. This is almost exactly the language out of Amy Berman Jackson's decision about Anton Dellinger, the companion federal special counsel's office. In enacting the Civil Service Reform Act, Congress exercised its power to regulate the civil service, defining certain prohibited personnel practices to include discrimination or loyalty oaths. Isn't that all about Donald Trump? Loyalty oaths, coercion to engage in political activity, and retaliation against whistleblowers. Direct political control over that board would have limited effect on the president's implementation of his policy agenda. In other words, he doesn't need to control this board in order to implement the will of the people or what he interprets it to be. It would instead neuter the statutory scheme by allowing high-ranking government officials to engage in prohibited practices and then pressure the Merit Service Protection Board into inaction. So the judge has granted the summary judgment, has granted the preliminary injunction, and has ordered as followed. Here's the conclusion. Declared, this is on page 34, that plaintiff Kathy A. Harris remains a member of the Merit Systems Protection Board, having been confirmed by the Senate in May of 2022. And she may be removed by the President prior to the expiration of her term only for inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office, pursuant to a certain statute. And everybody conceded that she's doing a fantastic bang-up job. Further ordered that the plaintiff shall continue to serve as a member of the board until her term expires, unless she is earlier removed for those cause reasons. Defendant secretaries, Besant and others are enjoined for removing her from office without cause. And it is further ordered that the court's temporary restraining order is vacated because he is issuing this the summary judgment being granted without trial, and therefore the permanent injunction is in place. This will now join together, like a conjoined twin, to go to the United States Supreme Court with the Hampton-Dellinger case. The Hampton-Dellinger case is already kind of primed and idling on the rocket pad for the United States Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts, already stepping in a little pinky toe into the case about a week or so ago, saying, why don't we just wait for all the preliminary injunctions to happen so this court has jurisdiction? We don't want to get involved with temporary restraining orders, but let us know when it's all done. It's all done. All done, Chief Justice Roberts. And so Calvin will go on fast track together about the fundamental question about whether Donald Trump has the power as president under Article 2 to fire somebody, even though the statute says by Congress it has to be independent. The person has to be fired for cause. When you fire the watchdogs who are looking over partisanship and whistleblower, you might end up in the United States Supreme Court. Let's hope they do the right thing. I'll certainly cover it right here on Legal AF and on the Midas Touch Network. We've got a podcast. Hopefully you've heard about it after 5 years. It's called the Midas.
And that one's over. Okay. I thought they were saying they had one.
Hey, what's up, everybody? You know, you start strong sometimes. What am I doing?
The world is recognizing how utterly weak and pathetic Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is caving with respect to the tariffs that he imposed on Mexico and Canada after he crashed the American economy and world economies. Donald Trump got a talking to by the big three auto manufacturers, and Donald Trump said, can we do an auto manufacturing carve-out Canada? To which Prime Minister Trudeau was like, do whatever you want to do. We're going to keep retaliatory tariffs until you stop putting us in this yo-yo cycle of abuse and tariffing us every 30 days. Do what you want to do, Donald. We're going to keep the retaliation going. Also, you have French President Emmanuel Macron delivering a powerful address to the people of France where he said, look, the United States is basically done. We need to lead Europe along with the UK and others. We need to create new security alliances, and we have to realize that Donald Trump is pretty much with Putin at this point, and we've got to realign. America becoming isolated and weaker than ever. But what's Donald Trump doing? Well, here's what he's spending the day doing. You want your free Trump 2024 gold bar? Grab yours today. This is what's being posted with Donald Trump's name, image, and likeness on his social media platform. And by the way, Donald, it's also 2025, but to be clear, this is a free Trump gold bar as opposed to the Trump gold card, where Russian oligarchs and Chinese oligarchs can buy citizenship into the United States for $5 million. If you just sold 10 million Trump gold cards and give citizenship to, 10 million oligarchs, you can make trillions of dollars, quadrillions of dollars. By the way, take a look at how long it took these presidents to reach net negative approval ratings. Donald Trump's reached a net negative approval in 44 days, whereas it took former President Biden 224 days. It took Clinton 132 days. Obama 520 days. Yes, Donald Trump's approval is plummeting like the American economy. We now see headlines like this. Beware, a recession that could be triggered by a chain reaction of
like Wiley after he runs off a cliff.
tariff risk. Wall Street executives say, you think Donald Trump crashing the economy and also crashing the lives of people who served our country so courageously? It seems that Donald Trump is focusing his attacks on marginalized groups, on veterans. I mean, just take a look at this. The Trump administration is firing, as you know, thousands of veterans as well as the spouses of armed service members who work in the government. And Donald Trump, we now learn, is planning on firing about 70,000 people who are part of the VA staff that serve veterans. And we previously reported that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are basically gutting the entire Social Security Administration. Remember, yesterday I played you an audio where the wait time was like hours and hours and hours just to try to get a human being on the call. And then to process a disability application, they were saying it would take close to 300 days for it to even first be processed to potentially even get a contact back. Donald Trump destroying our national parks. Donald Trump.
Anyone applying for disability right now? Bro, I feel for you. I'm sorry.
Trump destroying the Department of Labor, gutting the Department of Education, gutting our weather services, gutting all of the federal government every single day. But Donald Trump is blaming the fact that we're heading into a potential government shutdown on Democrats, because Donald Trump just thinks that everybody's just so stupid that we'll just believe anything that he writes. It's like 1984, right? Just they tell you what to believe, and they tell you 2 + 2 = 5, and you believe it. So here's what Donald Trump posted yesterday evening. He goes, government funding runs out next week, and Democrats are threatening to shut down the government. Pause there for a second. Donald, you control the executive branch. The House of Representatives is controlled by Republicans. The Senate is controlled by Republicans. You're blaming Democrats for trying to shut down the government. Here's the thing.
And there's the analogy I was talking about. The zebra bitching about the lions that are walking by, while the hyenas chewing on their ass. And I absolutely hate this is the country that I come from. This is a poor representation of everything American. And I really hate seeing that.
You can't normalize this behavior. The level of lying here is stratospheric. Democrats don't control any branch of government. They don't control the executive. They don't control either the House or the Senate in Congress. And Donald Trump's blaming the Democrats, excuse me. So Trump goes, government funding runs out next week and Democrats are threatening to shut down the government. But I am working with the great House Republicans on a continuing resolution to fund the government until September to give us some needed time to work on our agenda. Conservatives will love this bill because it sets us up to cut taxes and spending and reconciliation, all while effectively freezing spending this year and allowing us to continue our work to make America great again. Very important. Let's get the bill done. That's our editor-in-chief, Ron Filipkowski, goes, Democrats have no power to shut down the government. Even when Republicans control the presidency, the House, and the Senate, every legislative committee, they still try to blame Democrats for their failures. Pass your budget, Republicans. Oh, sorry, you can't figure out how to do that. Pass your CR then. And you notice they're still using the budget from Nancy Pelosi back in 2022. So while they claim all of this fraud, all of these things that are going on, they're still using the budget when the Democrats were in power in the House of Representatives back from, 2022 before the midterms? Because Republicans have been unable to do their most basic function, which is to freaking pass a budget. Donald Trump then writes the following. He goes, for anyone who is interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada that he largely caused the problem we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and illegal aliens to pour into the United States from Canada. These policies are responsible for the death of many people.
Who said you could ask me out?
What? If any part of Canada sees this, please. And I'm sorry, my American people. Start treating your border as if a bunch of no goods are trying to jump over. Give America a little bit of its own medicine, please. Anyone who comes across that doesn't have their shit, fucking send them back. It's gonna suck for a lot of us Americans, but fucking please. The message needs to be gotten across, and I know you guys will do it. Part of the reason why I always like the you guys are a little bit crazy. And usually a little smart, too. I'm willing to listen to some form of reason, as long as it's somewhat within their minds. I figure you probably do that. Definitely more in line with a few other places. If you're going to boycott America, boycott it. And honestly, don't take the tariffs down. America needs to feel the stain of this bullshit. They need to feel the wake up. And it's not all Americans. It's just a good section that are supporting this bullshit. And that's the only way it's going to happen. Yeah, Mexico, you too. I really hate saying it, but America needs to feel the stinkiness. America needs to feel your power over it. They need to be awoken to the fact that they are not something that can just separate itself. By doing so, they will destroy themselves, and they need to have that brought to their attention. And sadly, a lot of the people we're talking about are too thick to get it through words. At least not without a scientist, an economist, and then a translator. I'm saying translator, mediator there to help break it down. And even then, these people are going to have a lot of bloody questions. It's not something that you can just do a town hall. No. That's not going to cut it. Now, you guys keep doing what you're doing. And keep giving Democrats reasons to have town halls and keep having more support from the public. We might actually get through this without total destruction. Yeah, man of ways, not means. Which means I do a lot of thinking before I act. And typically before I speak. It doesn't mean that I'm accurate all of the goddamn time. I'm human, no error. I'm not perfect, and I don't really want to think I am. But if I'm supposedly some kind of something to be talked about, kind of should say it.
Do you even have an ability?
These policies are responsible for the death of many people. See, this is why, even if the tariffs eventually become resolved, why Canadians are boycotting all things American. You're calling Canadians our closest ally before you, Donald Trump, took a wrecking ball to our alliances. You're calling them murderers. You're calling the most peaceful people murderers based on abject lie.
The most peaceful people until pushed. Again. When someone has a mental disorder under control, disorder, issue, whatever it may be, you don't push them. Because it definitely gets retaliatory. And this is just the first layer of ice on an iceberg here of shit cake that y'all are trying to create with Canada. Yes, I'm talking to America. Taking the group supporting Trump. And well, actually, it might not even be y'all trying to create it. It's your leader. Well, what dramatic timing. That's natural lighting, not anything else, just to be clear. Donald Trump is trying to start hell with anybody and everybody except for China, Russia, North Korea, and I think it's leader of Hungary? Who are all the worst kinds of people. This natural lighting is being very dramatic. I'm actually a little compelled to show you that it's natural lighting and not not being done. That is my RV roof vent. As you can kind of see the corner there. That's what's providing the light. So, yeah, no. It's natural lighting. I am not doing that. Thanks, Mother Nature. No. If you support Donald Trump and watch this, I don't hate you. I'm not even close to hating you. I really don't like a lot of the choices and actions you've been taking. I don't hate you. As a matter of fact, I care a lot more about you than you probably do about me. And that's okay for now. It really is. And that's another one of the big differences between those who are still supporting Trump and those who aren't, is an overall caring for everyone that is a little bit higher than society is pointing out nowadays. And let me tell you, good. The fact that society is not pointing it out is actually very bad. And I don't mean society as in the people as a whole, but as in the Overton window society. it's not doing what it used to, as in saying that this stuff is not acceptable on general. And a lot of that came down to a lot of things being done to, well, better word, normalize shit. When they say this was a long game, they mean it. This has been going longer than I've been. We are quite literally seeing the remnants of the Nazi Party. It's not hype. That's fact. From multiple different sources, including their own actions. This really is an American all alert, a red alert, hands on deck kind of shit. This is not a game. This is not a joke. This is not small beans. This is life as you know it. No matter who you are. If you're making less than $500,000 a year, good luck. Hell, you might even need to be making $1 million a year. I don't know. I can't boil that number down. I don't know. There's too many factors to come. If you make that kind of money, you're probably going to be all right. If you don't, well, maybe even there you should be sweating. $500,000 for the year? Yeah, you might need to be sweating a little bit. You're talking about worse than COVID scenario. No, people aren't going to be having to have masks on or distancing. It's okay. I know. Scared boo away. They won't need to have masks on and social distancing because of government mandates. They'll be doing it for their own fucking safety. Because at this rate, the air is going to be fucking unbreathable in several places for too long. The way these regulations are being rolled back, breathing in California, anywhere south in Southern California, good luck. Disneyland, what air quality? What air? And that's not even going to be the worst. Well, for California, the fires are going to get a lot worse. Because removing these regulations is quite literally going to be global warming back up. Since when did a regulation become an offense to somebody? Don't get me wrong, I do agree that if the government's going to place these regulations in, they need to give some kind of funding to make it happen. Because, I mean, that is kind of part of the Constitution. Anything that the government says you have to do or is mandatory for you to do is not supposed to be paid by you. Government includes state level. Yeah, IDs, that you're paying for it is illegal. Technically, having to have identification is as well, but I'm not going to fight with that one too much. The reasoning behind that one makes sense. There's plenty enough there to support it. but force us to have to pay for it. Mm-mm. That one I'll bitch about. I mean, hell, a driver's license nowadays is $60-65 if you're lucky. That's not talking if you need any kind of endorsements. That's not talking a CDL. Which all truck drivers must have to be able to operate. Now, if you get lucky as a truck driver getting in, you might be able to get a company that will pay for your CDL. There are several out there. These are not the company that you want to stay with. Good example is Swift, but I will not say that they are a good example as a training company. There's a reason why the rest of the trucking community has a nickname for Swift. Well, actually, a couple of them. Sheep wants it in front of truck, and see what I fucked up today. Now, that first one does seem to have a racist tone to it, so I'm going to apologize for that. It's just a trucker saying. I'm not trying to be that way towards anybody.
I've been awake for 155 hours.
Why?
Cause why not?
Sanity? Your health? I believe it's after about a week with no sleep, you're going to start hallucinating.
I mean, my hand is just shaking.
Yeah? Your body's trying to tell you that you're suffering from exhaustion. As someone who's done his fair share of days without sleep, it's not good. And if you've got sleeping issues as it is, it's going to fuck it up.
I want to hit the 200-hour mark.
That's really up to you, dude. I would suggest if you're really trying to go for something like that, have somebody medical on standby. Because that shit's not... It's not lightweight shit. The hallucinations you're going to get are not the same as like on shrooms. And, yeah. Too many days after that starts, you can likely die. If not, just go completely insane. I would rather not see that. During the time of your hallucinations, it's going to be rough. Just be careful. I don't support what you're doing, but I support you. And that's why I say what I have. I care about you as a person.
It is utterly, utterly disgusting. And Donald Trump's saying this because he got his, you-know-what, handed to him by Prime Minister Trudeau, by the premiers of Canada, like Doug Ford, by the premier of Manitoba and others, who said, you know what, Donald, you want to see our big, beautiful laws that we're passing? We're banning all things American. We're taking American booze off of our shelf. We're taking American products off our shelf. You know, government procurement, no more for American companies, Donald. Oh, and you're going to send your Commerce Secretary, Howard Lutnick, that freaking snake oil salesman, into Canada to say, can we please make a deal? The American economies are crashing. We weren't prepared for this, even though Canadians, you prepared your people for a trade war. We just declared trade war. We don't know the ramifications here in the United States. And you know what? Prime Minister Trudeau and the premiers of Canada said, go pound sand, America. If you want to take away all of your tariffs, we'll take away our retaliatory tariffs. But do whatever you want. So you know what the United States does? Donald Trump caved right away. And Donald Trump said, okay, we're going to remove the tariffs for the auto, and maybe we'll remove the tariffs for agriculture. The agriculture hasn't been removed yet. The auto has. Why? Because Trump's destroying all of these industries in the United States. But Trump's like, all right, 30 more days. Let's do a 30-day extension, which, by the way, is creating an absolute mess. Here's Donald Trump's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, saying, though, Canada, it's been taken over by all of the Mexican cartels. Here, play this clip.
They're savers, but I don't want to contribute to that. What I want to say to every world leader who gets up in arms, who all we're asking for is fairness and to have them stop killing our people, is please listen to us. Canada could do a lot more. Canada has been taken over, Brett, by Mexican cartels. They bring up these pill presses and printers and the medicines that they fake. You can't tell the difference. Pharma companies can. You need a spectrometer to do
so utterly stupid. Then Donald Trump makes this post yesterday. He goes, Shalom Hamas means hello and goodbye. It also means
he's on
you
the
can
rough part of
choose. Release all of the hostages now, not later, and immediately return all of the dead bodies of the people you murdered, or it's over for you, Hamas. Only sick and twisted people keep bodies. You are sick and twisted. I am sending Israel everything it needs to finish the job. Not a single Hamas member will be safe if you don't do as I say. I have just met with your former hostages whose lives you have destroyed. This is your last warning, Hamas, for the leadership. Now is the time to leave Gaza while you still have a chance. Also, to the people of Gaza, a beautiful future awaits, but not if you hold hostages. If you do, you are dead. So he's just threatening all the people who live in Gaza. Make a smart decision. Release the hostages now, or there will be hell to pay later. Okay, this is different, though, than on, February 10th, when you threatened to unleash hell by the following Saturday if all of the hostages weren't released, and then you did nothing? Or how about you rewind before that? How about on January 7th, 2025, from Mar-a-Lago while you were golfing? You took a little break, and Donald Trump said, this is January 7th, 2025. He said, if all of the hostages aren't released by the time he gets into office, because remember, by January 7th, that's before the inauguration, he goes, all hell will break loose. January 7th, 2025, play.
If those hostages aren't back, I don't want to hurt your negotiation. If they're not back by the time I get into office, all hell will break out in the Middle East. And it will not be good for Hamas, and it will not be good, frankly, for anyone. All hell will break out. I don't have to say it anymore, but that's what it is.
Okay, now here's February 10th, 2025, where he says that the following Saturday, all hell would break loose and he would unleash hell. The following Saturday was February 15th. Here's what Trump said on February 10th. Play it.
I'm the developer of the game, The Tower. I wanted to make a tower defense game.
Oh,
your ads. Here's what Trump said on February 10th. Play it.
And as far as I'm concerned, if all of the hostages aren't returned by Saturday at 12 o'clock, I think it's an appropriate time. I would say cancel it and all bets are off and let hell break out. I'd say they ought to be returned by 12 o'clock on Saturday, and if they're not returned, all of them, not in drips and drabs, not 2 and 1 and 3 and 4 and 2. Saturday, 12 o'clock, and after that, I would say all hell is going to break out. And I don't think they're going to do it. I think a lot of them are dead. I think a lot of the hostages are dead. I think it's a great human tragedy what's happened, how people can be that mean to do. And the one guy was laughing when
when a hostage he thought his family was alive. Found out the family was dead, and his captor, so to speak, started laughing because he thought it was so funny. This is a different group of people. No, I would say Saturday at 12. We want them all back. I'm speaking for myself. Israel can override it, but from myself, Saturday at 12 o'clock, and if they're not here, all hell is going to break out.
Okay, and Donald Trump didn't unleash hell. The same way Donald Trump has caved. He's caved on the trade wars, and because he's weak and pathetic. And the same way strong men know how to bully Donald Trump. I think one of the things that our allies, unfortunately, are realizing is you just can't be nice to this vile, despicable, pathetic, and weak person, this reality huckster. You got to treat him like the piece of crap that he is. You can't treat him with respect. If you treat him like crap, if you act like a strong man to him, he's a weak, pathetic little imbecile. And I think, that's why Donald Trump looks up to strong men. He mistakes kindness and empathy and friendship and alliance for weakness.
Yep.
When it's actually strength. Because he's such a pathetic little person who goes after, veterans? He sends Alina Habba, who, lost his cases and got sanctioned in federal court, who's now his top advisor, and she goes that veterans are not fit for their jobs at this moment. Here's what she said.
Today, starting to think about maybe some of those veterans who worked for the federal government and maybe what the administration can do to at least help salvage their lives.
Well, as you know, we care about veterans tremendously.
Yeah, that's the tail end of that. I've heard enough of that. I've heard that clip at least 4 or 5 times. I'm good. That one gets me. I am the son of a veteran. My family is a bunch of veterans in blood and in adoption. You don't speak bad about the veterans like that. Not unless they actually are doing something like that. And you cannot tell me that many en masse who are working in the government are doing something like that. I'm sorry, but bullshit. These guys and gals are trying to live their lives after service. And willing to continue to serve in an honorable fashion. To attack veterans that are working in our government, any of them, without explicit proof, is not okay. That's not fucking acceptable. I don't care who you are. If you want to go a system based on merits, kicking these guys out of the positions they're in is not doing that. As a matter of fact, it's going against it. These people are in these positions because they have the merits. Because they did the work. I don't know. I don't know why anyone's sitting copacetic with this whatsoever. This is not the shit. We're fucking with it. This is not the shit. I don't know what's who's where, or how, or why. I'm not going to claim to. honestly, I'm not gonna sit here and say that what they're doing is okay. It's fucking. I'm not gonna sit here and go, oh, look, they're doing all this. No, they're not. Nobody's doing it. You're making shit up. Literally. You were quite literally trying to start a fight. Why can so many people not see these bullying ass tactics? I don't get it. No, wait, yes I do. Or I wouldn't be here. What I don't get is why people aren't doing more digging. What I don't get is why these people are not looking at shit and going, okay, this isn't what I voted for. I don't get why these people aren't sitting here and freaking ripping their Congress people a new asshole because it's not what they voted for. I don't get why there's not so many more Republicans up in arms because this is not what they voted for. Yeah, I know y'all didn't vote for this. I'm not stupid. Far from it. And I'm not going to hold you guys to somebody else's action and behavior. Especially when it ain't your fault. You guys didn't vote for this. You didn't ask for this. As a matter of fact, several of you are rather pissed off about it. And I can't bloody blame you. Not at all. I would be too. If I was in your shoes. I'd be angry as hell. But it wouldn't be the left I'd be looking at. You motherfuckers are supposed to be doing as I say. Because, I should say, y'all say. Because, that's their job. Quite literally, you all are the boss, not them. I don't know where this bit's come to think that the president's the boss. But it's not right. Sorry. You're the boss, whether you realize it or not. And if you're getting tired of this bullshit, it's about time you fucking put your foot there. There are many congressmen and women that are supporting this fool. Blow their goddamn phone up. Make it to where they can't sit there and do what they need to do. You've got a lot more power than you realize. Americans as a people are strong when they stand together. Apparently nobody's caught what I was inferring on Twitter. Or here yet. But I definitely made it nice and clear on Short with God Pod. Millionaires are fucking weak. And I've said this several times. I haven't made clear exactly what it is that makes them weak, though. So, I should state it. Most millionaires, like Elon Musk and Donald Trump, millionaires that are still out to fucking screw you, are very much material possessions people. They don't have their material possessions, they crumble. And I do mean fucking. So, my suggestion still to anyone who wants to do more than just protest or go to a town hall and yell at a Democrat, because Republicans aren't doing them anymore. Fear. They've got some tasty berries in their backyards, figuratively speaking. They've got some really nice things, as an old saying goes. It would be a shame if something happened to all those really nice things. And on that note, I'm going to end the stream saying, as usual, since this is life now, I may be anti-religion, but if you're not, you worship a deity. I don't know how you pray or communicate to them, but do so. Asking for these people to come up for air and see what's going on. Yes, an anti-religion person is telling you to fucking pray. And yeah, those words are being intended. Loki. She scared you? Yeah. You scared her back pretty good, too. You guys okay? Yeah. Animals. Nothing like breaking the ice on a serious situation. But yeah. The anti-religion guy's telling you to fucking pray. If you don't pray, send out good vibes. That's what some of them want. The universe is going to hear it one way, shape, or form. Maybe, just maybe, if you believe in it, it'll sway. Sorry, I do not believe that you can sway the universe. I believe you can only change your course in it. Destiny is not written. Fates are not set in stone. The only plans there are the plans you make. And in that light, I suggest you make plans to make the best of every day you go. Life is short. Life is fucking brutal. Do what you can to make sure it's not any more brutal than it has before. That means getting the word out. That means praying if you pray. That means not just sitting there keeping your mouth shut. So until next newscast, everyone, this is Old Mage Guy. Keep your eyes open and